with the victory and the $10,000? And who will be frustrated, load up on the trailer, and go home and dream of next year's glory? We prepare for the start. The first of our parade laps is now being taken.
I don't think that's the right time.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're watching them come by for the first time. Now, as they come through that area of the second turn, it's your chance to salute the 28 that are going to be starting. Let's show them what we think of their abilities to race and their performances at the Indianapolis Speedrome by waving to them. Come on, Michigan fans. Your crew is out there. Your favorite Michigan drivers are out there and ready to run. Let's see a salute from the Michigan fans to your invaders of the north, hoping to take that $10,000 home with you. Come on, guys from Anderson. You know that your folks can win here at this racetrack. Let's see you salute your Anderson fans as they come through here this next time. All you folks down there from the Sportsdrome, from Louisville, and from Jeffersonville and Clarksville down in southern Indiana and Kentucky. Let's see what you can do tonight to show us what sort of efforts your fans and your drivers have come up with at the Indianapolis Speedrome as they come southbound on this parade lap. Come on, folks, let's wave to your favorite drivers. They know what they've gone through to make this race possible. Let's see your salute to these brave 28 as they get set to run. That we'll have a chance to see all of these cars in this stately formation as they move through in rows of two. The last time we may have a chance to see some of these cars in one piece, right side up. We wish these guys Godspeed. We know the treacherous dangers of the Indianapolis Speedrome figure 8 course. The track crews are at ready. Back in the pit area, the alternates are lined up and set to go. The scorers are ready to count the laps. The hundreds of laps will be completed tonight at the Indianapolis Speedrome. And we're so glad to have you on hand. My name is Kevin O'Neill. I'll be on the public address system, hoping to bring you as much of this exciting action as possible. We have a television crew here from WTTV Television who will start to produce this race for later broadcast, condensing the most exciting moments of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race for later presentation over television. The entire field now starts to move behind the pace car. We're just about ready to run here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. We are just about set to go. We won't have that much time to go before we are ready to take off. As you see the fireworks go into the air. What are you guys looking for? Getting set to run here as we move through turns number 3 and 4. We are getting set to watch this race begin. The field peels out of that corner. Let's watch them come down to the green flag and the start of tonight's 3-hour figure 8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The clock has now started. Mike St. John is the first of our leaders as we head northbound for the first time. Mike St. John in first place as cars 1, 2, and 3 are first, second, and third. The 1 of Mike St. John, the 2 of Wayne Arnold, and the 3 of Charlie Reed are in that position. There's Charlie now being challenged on the inside for third spot by the number 16 of Rance Harmon, and Rance takes that spot. You see Jack Dawsey Jr. now goes 1 lap down as we move through the second lap of what could be hundreds of laps here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Harmon and Reed in a tight battle for third spot, along with the number 5 of Bruce Tunney, the number 4 Bill Tunney Jr., the 54 Bob Stute. There is Kenny St. John and number 14 moving up along with the number 17 of George Sutton. Already in trouble, you have the number 3 machine. That's the number 3C, the silver number 3 of Mike Kay. No, he gets restarted, it's okay. Some guys at the tail end of the field are having their trouble. Oops, Rance Harmon sneaks by. Rance Harmon now takes over first spot. Harmon, your second leader of this race as we work through lap number 4. Harmon up in front, second place to Mike St. John. Your third place car is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, then you've got the 3 of Charlie Reed. The number 5 car, Bruce Tunney, the number 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. Then you've got the 54 of Bob Stute, the number 18 of Jeff Heiser, the 14 of Kenny St. John. The number 9 car, that's the machine of George Sutton, and the number 17 car, 17 of Sutton, and the number 9 car of Leonard Basham, and the number 11 car of Bobby Ellen, the 15 of Donnie Garrigus, the 09 machine of Gary Early, the number J2 machine of Joe McKinney also there. The smoke from the fireworks covers the Indianapolis Speedrome for a moment as we see the number 16 machine almost get into that number 14. The number 14 that's running there is Ben Benedict, and Ben Benedict almost a lap down. Ben Benedict now put a lap down by the leader, Rance Harmon. Ben Benedict in that V14, the white number 14 that's currently about 6 car lengths behind, is running a lap or so down. Rance Harmon comes across the line northbound for his 7th lap. Mike St. John we see in position number 5. Ahead of him, 4th place Charlie Reed at number 3. The number 5 car of Bruce Tunney, and the 2nd place car is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. We continue to run through the early laps of this race. We have the number 16 of Rance Harmon, who is the surprise early leader of this race. We have a pair of number 16s out there. The number 16, which we mention as the leader, is the red number 16. The number 2 of Wayne Arnold, the red number 2, is running in 2nd spot. The number 5, the only number 5 on the racetrack, is Bruce Tunney, who is in 3rd place. 4th spot is the number 3, the white number 3 of Charlie Reed, and then the white and yellow number 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. Your leaders now make up a 5-car pack as they complete 9 laps and about 3 minutes of racing. We are now going to develop the leader's dilemma at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The leader's dilemma is this: the faster and the harder the leaders race, the more trouble they are going to have with that intersection traffic. So far, nobody in this lead group has run into any sort of trouble with traffic. In fact, the entire 28 cars are on the racetrack and still going. Bruce Tunney makes his move around Wayne Arnold for that runner-up spot. Bruce tries to consolidate the position. Wayne back down to the inside in 2nd spot. Rance Harmon brings him across the line. Watch out, the number 85 machine and Mitch Dykman have to watch out for that. Bill Tunney Jr. moves around Brother Roos, trying to pick up 3rd spot as they head northbound for the 12th time as we move past the 4-minute mark of this race. Battle for the lead up in front. Outside, the 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. going through the 2nd turn on the inside. Rance Harmon pulls up a couple of car lanes. Have to watch out for Mitch Dykman. Bill Tunney Jr. down low, going for 1st spot, takes over the lead. Tunney makes him the 3rd leader of this race. The early leader of this one, of course, was Mike St. John at the number 1. Then you had the number 16 of Harmon, who led up through lap number 12, and now trouble there with the number 33 and 52 cars running into each other on lap number 13. The number 4, Bill Tunney Jr. takes over the lead. The first car to leave the track is the number 33 car, the Flat Rock champion, goes off the track in lap number 14, and that brings our first alternate onto the track. The first alternate, who is Gene Houston, number 39. Gene Houston joins the race on lap number 14. Houston waits in the intersection with the number 3 machine as you see the leaders file on by. The number 3 machine there is the one we're talking about, the old Charlie Reed car of Mike Kane. The number 4 machine of Bill Tunney Jr. leads. 2nd place is Harmon of the number 16. Your 3rd place car is the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. As we see it from the tower, your 4th place machine is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. In 5th spot is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. We have 6th spot, I believe, now Leonard Basham at the number 9. In 7th place, you have the number 18 of Jeff Heiser. Your 8th place car, as we see it, is the number 14 of Kenny St. John. 9th place will be the number 1 of Mike St. John. And in 10th spot is the number 1 of Mike St. John now, because the number 17 of George Sutton has moved into 9th place. There goes Bob Stute in 54, challenging with Mike St. John. Mike started on the pole and has now dropped out of the top 10. Watch to see if Mike St. John is suffering any sort of trouble out there. We'll watch out for intersection trouble as the 07 machine, one of the starters, Dave Staten, had to pick a hole. There goes the number 16 of Rance Harmon. Harmon now tries to move up and take over the lead. Harmon on the inside. Watch out for the number 40 of Jack Dandy. And the 07 of Harmon has to go through as well, as Harmon goes down to the inside, and the number 16 of Rance Harmon leads lap number 18. Harmon takes over first spot once again. Second place and third place of the Tunney brothers, Bill and Bruce. You can see that Bruce already has a damaged rub rail on the right side, and Kane in the silver number 3 has his troubles again, circling around the track trying to get going. Another alternate is being added to the race. Second alternate, the number 10 car, is being put into the race. That is the number 10 car of Rich Fenwick. As you see, the number V14 of Ben Benedict is leaving the race at lap number 20. Rance Harmon and Bill Tunney Jr. have traded the lead back and forth for the last 8 laps or so. As we see it, the last car on the lead lap unofficially would be the number 11 of Bobby Ellett, the former champion. Battle for the lead coming out of number 4. Watch out for traffic at the crossover coming 2 ways. Bill Tunney Jr. moves back out in front. Rance Harmon down to the inside, tries to take him on. Tunney now consolidates first place, taking it back at the end of lap number 22. Jack Dawsey Jr. appears to be in trouble. Jack Dawsey Jr. in 52 is now limping toward the exit to the pit area. Jack was having a hard time getting there. The guy that started this race in 27th spot is dropping out, and that will open up the chance for Scott Martin. Scott Martin in number 49 adds to the race. Joins the race at lap number 23. And there come the leaders. Watch out, it's a big crowd at the crossover. The leaders have to wait for a big gap of cars to get on through. Gene Houston is one of the fast guys on the racetrack. Watch Gene Houston go with the number 39, the first alternate trying to move up through the field. He is currently in our lead group 5th in that serial. There's the number 5 of Bill. Bruce Tunney being hit and spun out by the number A7 car of Rush Champagne. Also in trouble there, the number J2 machine. That is the car of Kinney. And the number 16 machine is in trouble. Bruce Tunney trying to get that car reversed out of the way. I don't know if that machine is damaged. Bruce Tunney, who had to be considered one of the favorites in this race, is in danger of going a lap down as he gets restarted right in front of his brother. And brother Bill Tunney Jr. puts Bruce a lap down. That lead group now pulls itself about 1 full turn ahead of the rest of the guys up in front. The 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. and the 16 of Rance Harmon have a big advantage of the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Then you've got the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. There's Leonard Basham trying to battle with Wayne Arnold for 4th spot. Then you've got the number 17 of Sutton, the number 14 of Kenny St. John, the number 54 of Bob Stute, the 18 of Heiser, and the number J2 machine unofficially up in there. We see a big white mark on the number 14 of Ben Benedict. That car has now been put back into the race, apparently after a tire change. Tremendous battle for the lead between Harmon and the number 4, Bill Tunney Jr. Look at this. They're caught up in the traffic. No place to go. They just barely get out of the way of the leaders. Do those cars that are behind that lead group. Tunney on the inside. Sneaks underneath Harmon and regains first spot. Again, heavy traffic in the crossover. Charlie Reed uses that traffic to pass both cars and take over the lead. And catching up as a result of that traffic up in front, you've got the number 9 car, Basham, and the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. There goes Tunney up in front for a moment. Charlie Reed noses out in front as they go for first spot. Working the 31st lap and the 11th minute of this race. Charlie Reed leads in number 3. Second place is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold for a moment. Here's another alternate is in front of the entire field. The number 66 of Joe Biondolillo. That low-slung black New York-style modified car is now in the race. The leader is Charlie Reed. Second spot belongs to Bill Tunney Jr. Third place to Wayne Arnold. Fourth place to the number 16 of Harmon. Then you've got the number 17 of George Sutton trying to move up. The number 14 of Kenny St. John. The number 54 of Stute. The 779 of Gaddis as we see it. And those are the cars that were sure on the lead lap as Mike St. John continues to move back. There are only 3 cars, the last 3 cars of the lead lap. Mike St. John is one of those, along with the 66 machine of Bill Frazier and the number 11 of Bobby Ellett. Mike St. John, for all intents and purposes, is the last car on the lead lap. Charlie Reed continues to run up in front. Speedrome regulars held the early positions up in the lead group. The only interloper that's in that group up in the lead is the number 16 of Rance Harmon, along with the number 9 car of Leonard Basham. Basham is overdue for a fine performance here in this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race. Almost put into the wall, actually brushing into the wall, the 09 of Gary Early. He recovers and keeps on going. Moving back onto the racetrack, the first of our leaders to make a pit stop, Tom Stute, the number 33, has to wait for the rest of the traffic. There come the leaders around him. Tom Stute overwhelmed by your first 3 cars. The leader 3, Charlie Reed. Second place, the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. In third place, Basham in the number 9. Now keep a close watch on the number 39 car. That's the first alternate, Gene Houston in the number 39. Houston may be the fastest guy on the racetrack right now. Houston is not going for the lead. Leonard Basham is. Look at Leonard go down to the inside, taking over the runner-up spot as we complete lap number 36, and we're midway through the 12th minute of this 3-hour race. And Basham takes the lead. Basham to the outside of number 3. Flies around Charlie Reed, but he put it in too hot, and Charlie back to the inside takes over first spot. But Leonard Basham coming up all the way from starting spot number 14, again challenges for the lead on the inside of number 1. And at the end of the 37th lap, it is Leonard Basham who leads this race. An amazing group of guys up in the lead. We've had Mike St. John, Wayne Arnold, Leonard Basham, Charlie Reed, Bill Tenney Jr., and Rance Harmon. Crossover crash. Leonard Basham crashes into the number 3 car, the number 3C of Kane at the intersection. Basham keeps on going. No apparent major damage to Basham's car, although we'll have to watch the first major crossover crash of the night in the Indianapolis Speedrome between Kane and the leader. And the leader of this race taken out of that crossover incident. We'll keep a close watch on Basham's car as Bill Tenney Jr. goes back into the lead. Doesn't appear to have taken too much of a hit from that wreck. It appears to have knocked up a corner of the hood and let a hood pin go as we see the number 69 of Kenneth Algren. Algren and the 69, our 5th alternate, is now on the racetrack. Charlie Reed tries to sneak through. There's Rance Harmon trying to get around Charlie Reed. There's Reed trying to get around Bill Tenney Jr. as they move on the 42nd lap. A tremendous 3-car fight for the lead as they head northbound. The intersection will be just barely clear for everybody to go through. Reed now dropped back to 3rd spot almost. Let's see if the number 16 of Harmon can make it go. Out of number 4, Charlie Reed looks for an opening and finds it. Somebody is now going into the pits. Let's see who is making the stop. It is Leonard Basham who makes the stop as he moves off the racetrack after 42 laps were finished. So Leonard Basham charged up from 14th spot, took over the lead, and then taken out by a crossover crash. Last car on the lead lap as we see it is the number 66 car of Bill Frazier as we put in alternate Jerry Carter on lap number 42. Big pile up at the intersection as Carter and the Ben Benedict cars had to hit the brakes. There's Charlie Reed caught back in that pack of cars 3 wide through number 3, trying to get back to what he had, which was a position up in the front of the field. Once again, we've got ourselves the 2 guys up in front going at each other with nobody else in the way. The 4 of Bill Tenney Jr., the number 16 of Rance Harmon. 3rd spot, Charlie Reed. 4th position is the number 18 of Jeff Heiser as we see it, and then you've got the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, the 14 of Kenny St. John. Unofficially, we go back to the number 17 of George Sutton, the number 54 of Bob Stute. Gaddis is now going into the pit area. Ray Gaddis in 779 is in trouble. He is going into the pits. Moves into the pits, and that will allow the next alternate, Ronnie Klontz, to move on to the racetrack. You see the guy in the number 3 machine, Kane. Mike Kane has gotten out of his car, and he's going to call it a night. On lap number 46, crossover crash with Bill Frazier and the number 07 machine, and a crash off the crossover between the number 07 and the number 16 car. That's the white number 16 of Robbie Loving. It started with an intersection crash between the number 66 of Bill Frazier and the number 07 of Dave Staten. And then as Staten was careening out of control, he was hit by Robbie Loving's number 16. Intersection is now clear as Leonard Basham comes onto the racetrack and spins as he charges into the first turn. Basham trying to get out of his own way as he resumes the race. He's lost several laps. Now Kenny St. John involved in another crash. Kenny St. John had been hit. Quick flash of fire from the number 09 car, just to backfire as Kenny St. John obviously was hit in the left rear, and he is going to have to go off to the pit area. Kenny St. John involved in this chain reaction wreck, and Kenny will go into the pit area. Pit stop now opens up the chance for another alternate to move out. We'd see if we have Joe Jackson, another alternate on the track. Not yet. We instead go to Clyde Cole's machine. Joe Jackson is not presented. Yeah, we do have Jackson out. And we also have Clyde Cole out, a ninth alternate on lap number 49. Now let's find your leaders in this race. The leader is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Second spot in a battle through traffic is the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. Your third place car, as we see it, is the number 18 of Jeff Heiser. In fourth spot is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Fifth spot is the number 17 car of George Sutton. Sixth place, 2 cars have come together at the north end of the racetrack. One of them is the number 11 of Bobby Ellett. The other one is the number 7. That's one of our starting number 7s. That is the number 7 car of Russ Champagne. Champagne is going, but Ellett's machine has not come out and run again. Let's see if that's going to cause a caution. Bobby Ellett's car stalled in the middle of the track, and that will cause our first caution of the night. We will put out our first caution period of the night. Yellow comes out on lap number 52. The yellow comes out on lap number 52 as the leaders now start to cut through that intersection, and the pace car tries to chase them down as they come down to the yellow. This is our first caution period of the night. As you see, Bobby Ellett managed to get a certain distance away from everybody, but he actually stops on the racetrack. Remember, this is the caution period. Ellett will have to go to the tail end of the line. Mike Kane takes a moment to glance at his car and find out how much damage was done there. It's been one of those races. We've had ourselves some crossover crashes so far. The most eventful of those crossover accidents happening when Kane, who you see down there out of the silver number 3, collided with the leader at that time, Leonard Basham. Basham lost several laps in the pits, then came onto the track and actually spun. Basham now at the tail end of the field, waving to somebody. I'm not sure who Basham is waving to, but he gets going again. As we see the cars move around in this caution formation. The leader as we see it is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Second spot as we see it is the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. Your third place car, the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Unofficially in fourth spot, we have the 17 of George Sutton. Unofficially in fifth place, we have the number 54 car of Bob Stute. Unofficially in sixth spot, we are looking for the guy that'd be in the, we actually, I got the count, Jeff Heiser, the number 18. Sorry, Jeff. Unofficially, I'd have Jeff Heiser maybe up at second spot, although we'd have to double check on that. Again, unofficially, we have Reed in first, second place to Heiser, third place to Bill Tenney Jr., and fourth place to Wade Arnold. Fifth place, unofficially, I'd put George Sutton in 17. Unofficially, in sixth spot, I'd have the 54 of Stute. Unofficially, in seventh spot, I'd put the number 1 of Mike St. John. And again, as I see it, those would be the last cars on the lead lap. Coming onto the racetrack after pit stops, you have the number 14 of Kenny St. John, and the rest of those guys. We're about ready to turn them loose. We do have a green flag on the track. We do have a green flag, and that signals the restart of this race. And as I see it, at the tail end of the lead lap, you'd have the number 16 of Rance Harmon. Harmon could be in danger of going a lap down, however, on this jumbled restart because of all the cars that are out there. They are 5 and 6 wide, and there is Harmon being passed by the number 3 of Charlie Reed, going a lap down because he was caught there at that intersection. Cars are still stopped at the intersection looking for some way to get through. The entire infield is the intersection of the Indianapolis Speedrome, and there's Bruce Tunney getting away for the number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus. Leader is still the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Second spot trying to chase him down, Bill Tunney Jr. The intersection traffic finally figures itself out as you see the number 19 of Ronnie Klontz. Klontz going the wrong way, the number 19, I don't believe it. Where's Ronnie Klontz going? Ronnie Klontz now pulls off the track. He has himself a flat tire. He's looking for a chance to get out of the way. Ronnie Klontz looking for a way to get out of somebody's way, maybe back to the pits. As we see the number 3 of Charlie Reed and the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. almost get into the number 16 of Robbie Lovey. That'd be his second crash tonight. Working the 58th lap on this restart. We see the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. retakes the lead. Up in front, second spot as we see it in this race would be Charlie Reed. In third place should have the number 17 of George Sutton. Fourth place would be the number 2 of Wade Arnold. Then you would have the number 54 of Bob Stute, as you see the 84 of Russ Champagne moving on the racetrack. And behind the... We're looking for Rance Harmon to see where he is. Harmon has now managed to pull some distance up. Yeah, Harmon is a lap down, remember. Harmon and the number 39 of Gene Houston have a long way to go to try to catch up in this race. The leaders are in the middle of this pack. I mean, literally in the middle of it. Bill Tenney Jr. leading, unofficially Charlie Reed in second. Charlie being challenged by third place George Sutton. Fourth place is Wade Arnold. In fifth spot, we have to go all the way back to the number 54 Bob Stute, and in sixth place, the number 1 of Mike St. John. Unofficially, those guys are the last cars on the lead lap. Working the 62nd circuit of this 3-hour race, and we're also starting the 25th minute. And Mike St. John have a good race going for fifth spot. Mike down to the inside for the moment takes that position away from Bob Stute as they head northbound. Some distance behind those guys are the leaders of this race. Bill Tenney Jr. now has 3 cars between he and second place, Charlie Reed. Reed is trying to move past the number 91 of Jerry Carter so he can stay in front of the number 17 of George Sutton. As we see it, those guys are running for position number 2, unless Jeff Heiser is, yeah, let's correct ourselves. Unofficially, Jeff Heiser is the position number 2 car, the number 18. Heiser getting around Charlie Reed for position number 2. Reed back in third. Fourth spot shown as the number 17 of George Sutton unofficially. Fifth place to Mike St. John. Rather, fifth place going to the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Sixth place would go to Mike St. John unofficially. And seventh spot to the number 54 of Bob Stute. Race. Most of the cars for the moment are packed into about one half of the racetrack, literally one half of the racetrack. Mike St. John and Bill Frazier in a race of their own. Frazier in the 66. The faster they go, the closer they come to guys like Gene Houston at the tail end of the field. This field virtually is in a self-contracting position. The faster the guys go in the front of the field, the closer they come to the guys in the rear of the field that can't get by the slower guys at the rear of the field. So everybody stays packed together in that tight formation at the back of the racetrack. 3 abreast, they come down to the line, 4 abreast for a moment. The only guys in that group that are going through turn number 2 right now that are actually racing each other, Mike St. John and the number 1, and the 54, Bob Studer, are in 6th and 7th spot. Here comes Bill Tenney Jr., the number 4, trying to put Studer a lap down. Bill Jr. laps Studer. Now Bill Tenney Jr. is trying to put Mike St. John a lap down. Mike was the second fastest qualifier, but since this race began, he has gone steadily backwards. Now the last car on the lead lap. Coming up to Ray Gaddis, who has rejoined the race. They've got to make a decision at the intersection. Just about everybody gets through. Tight running there at the crossover as you see the 69 car. Whoops, there is a car getting together. Wayne Arnold is spun and he has cut down a tire. Wayne Arnold has a flat tire on that spin. He has a flat tire on the left rear, and that's big trouble for Wayne Arnold. He is going to go at least 1 lap down, maybe even more. Wayne Arnold will now have to go into the pit area to get that tire changed. And Wayne Arnold, the winner of last week's 1 hour at the Indianapolis Speedrome, is now in trouble. Wayne Arnold has put Bob Studer lap down. He has also lapped the number 1 of Mike St. John. As we see it, the runner-up car continues to be Jeff Heiser at 18. Other cars that we see on the lead lap unofficially from the announcer's position are the number 3 of Charlie Reed and the number 17 of George Sutton. Working the 28th minute of this race as we put Billy Simmons onto the racetrack in number 7. Simmons is the 11th alternate, joins the race in lap number 71. The 28th minute of 180 minutes of racing here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. We see the number 91 of Jerry Carter loop this car to the infield and gets restarted right in front of the leader. Crowded crossover for Bill Tenney Jr. Time so that we can sneak through at ease. Now notice this interesting phenomenon. Bill Tenney Jr. in 4 has gone around Mike St. John in 1, but has not been able to pull that far away. The heavy crossover traffic has been one reason, but I think Mike St. John has finally found a way to pace himself. Also notice that Leonard Basham is up there trying to get a lap back. Leonard Basham, after his crossover crash, lost several laps. Basham now moves up to try to get around Bill Jr. in the number 4 and take that lap back. But he's got several of those laps to make up, and he's got a lot of time to do it. And Leonard Basham, because Bill Tenney Jr. stopped for Ben Benedict's 14, he managed to get that lap back. But no, Bill Jr. down to the inside, moves back past Basham as they come to the intersection. Who's going to hit the brakes first? Basham did, and got on the brakes and almost spun the car. Intersection crash between Benedict and 14 and the number 39 car of Gene Houston. Houston with a flat tire on the right rear. Benedict's machine, the V14, appears to have stalled. Now he backs that car out of the way. But Houston's car took a hard hit on the right side, bashing in that side of the compartment. We'll watch to see if that will prompt another yellow flag. Benedict's car badly damaged, not able to run any. Houston's machine continues to sit crippled, not too far from the busy part of the intersection. Benedict now gets his car ready to run and pulls off the racetrack. Houston's machine, very close to the danger zone of the Indianapolis Speedrome, stays there. Bill Tenney Jr. maintains that first spot. Mike St. John has dropped some distance back from Tenney. Of course, Mike St. John is more than a lap down. Leonard Basham trying to catch up to Bill Tenney Jr. Also trying to put on a movement to get a lap or so back is the number 14 of Kenny St. John. Watch out of the intersection for Robbie Loving. He's already been involved in an intersection crash. Takes an extra half lap. The gap between your current leader, the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr., and your unofficial second place car, who would be the number 18 car of Jeff Heiser, is roughly 3/8 of a lap. Then back to the number 3 of Charlie Reed and the number 17 of George Sutton. As we see it, those are your cars in the lead lap. Wayne Arnold is back on the racetrack. He has made a fast tire change, but it has dropped him several laps behind the leaders. Some of the faster drivers here have had their troubles For example, Gene Houston, who was the first alternate and was one of the quickest guys on the racetrack at that point. Same with Leonard Basham, was oh, look out! The number 09 car hit the number 39. The 09 machine of Gary Early hit the number 39 car of Gene Houston and pushed it back another 20 feet or so. Hit it head on. Early keeps on going. Houston's machine now sits very close to the wrecked number 07 car of Dave Staten, who was involved in an earlier three-car chain reaction crossover crash. Bill Tunney Jr. takes it easy through the intersection, looking for a clean way to go through. Again, Leonard Basham in the number 9 is trying to get his lap back. He has several laps to redeem. And now going 2 laps down is Harmon. Harmon in the number 16 had dropped a lap back earlier. Now he's lost 2 laps to the leader at least. Bill Tunney Jr. in midway, the 32nd minute of this race, leads lap number 84. The runner-up spot belongs to 18 Jeff Heiser, who stays clear of the number 3 of Charlie Reed, who has now moved around the number 17 of George Sutton. As we see it, those are the cars on the lead lap. Spilling from the first radiator of Gene Houston's number 39. We'll watch that water to see if it gets onto the racetrack and possibly makes things slippery on that difficult approach to the first turn. You see the number 9 car of Leonard Basham almost spun in that first corner. Harmon has managed to get one of his laps back from the number 4 car of Bill Tunney Jr. Bill Jr. continues to lead. Still a substantial gap between Bill Jr. and your runner-up car, who is Jeff Heiser. Now Bill Jr. hesitates at the intersection and is unlapped by Leonard Basham, but no, Bill Jr. ducks back down to the inside and gets his lap back from Basham as they battle and move around the J2 car of Joe McKinney. Basham and Tunney are putting on a good battle, but it's not for position. Harmon had been battling Tunney for the lead before he had a problem and went a lap down as he was caught in traffic at the tail end of the lead lap. And I'm sure that Harmon realizes that he has to stay on the lead lap with Tunney if he wants to have any sort of chance of winning this race. So that is why you now have that big battle between Harmon in the red number 16 and Tunney in the number 4. And Leonard Basham in the number 9 also up in there in a race which is not for position, but a race to try to get laps back from the leader, Bill Tunney Jr. in car number 4. Moving down to complete the 90th lap, and we're nearing the end. Oh, watch out, Bill Tunney Jr. had to nail the brakes to keep from getting into Jack Dandy. That puts Harmon back around. Early also trying to move around the leader and get a lap back. As you see, Tunney leads this group around the racetrack. And now Tunney pulls away from Harmon and Basham. Let's now give you an interval timing between the leader and second place, Jeff Heiser. It's about 5.5 seconds. In third spot, we see Charlie Reed at number 3 ahead of fourth place, the number 17 of George Sutton. Working the 35th lap and the 92nd, or the 35th minute of the 92nd lap of this race. In big trouble, you see the number 69 machine out there. That is Kenneth Algren. Obviously, he's taking a big shot there in the right rear, flattening a tire and ripping up much of the bodywork. Some of that bodywork is now, look, there's a big steel bar out there that's in the middle of the intersection. One of the bars from that machine is now on the racetrack, and the cars are running over it. One of those cars has dragged that bar now to the outside of turn number 1, where it's relatively out of the way. I hope somebody didn't cut down a tire on that big bar that fell off of Kenneth Algren's number 69. Leonard Basham continues to try to battle to get a lap back, but Bill Tunney Jr. who threads the needle perfectly between Loving and Jackson. Working now into the 36th minute of this race and the 95th lap. Big trouble in the intersection almost between the, oh, there's the number 4 of Danny having to move around several cars in the intersection, and spinning is Ray Gaddis, the number 779 in the middle of the first turn, but he gets out of the way. Bill Tunney Jr. continues to lead in this race. Your runner-up spot continues to go to Jeff Heiser in the number 18 cars. Jack Dandy heads halfway back home to get around those 2 crippled cars in the middle of the intersection. now unofficially back in third spot as Charlie Reed has moved around. And there's the number 17 of George Sutton, who is trying to catch up to Heiser in the 18 and pick up third spot. Give us this information as we move into the 98th lap of the race. There's the completion of the 98th lap. Those two guys that you have seen racing so hard with the number 4 Bill Tenney Jr., the leader, are more than one lap off the pace. Bill Tenney Jr. leads to the number 4. Your second place car, according to scoring, is the number 18 of Heiser. Third place is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. And in fourth spot, you would have the number 17 of George Sutton. You should see Bob Stute hit the number 7 car of Billy Simmons out there. We've got 4 cars that are involved in a mess at the intersection. One of them is Mike St. John. Mike St. John, Bill Frazier, Ray Gaddis, and the number 69 car that earlier spun, Kenneth Algren, all in a big mess out there, and Mike St. John has lost another lap to the leader. Mike St. John is now 2 laps off the pace. The 2 pink cars got into each other. Frazier's number 66 and Gaddis' number 779. Again, to go over your group of cars that are reading in the lead group. The leader is still the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. Second spot would be the number 3 of Charlie Reed. We have to look a long way to get to him as you see the yellow has come out. We have a caution flag that has been displayed for that big mess of the intersection involved the number 1 of Mike St. John and the 66 of Bill Frazier. We noticed that one of our lead group cars is missing. The number 17 of George Sutton, who had been moving up into position number 3 or 4, is now off the racetrack. So let's once again, during this yellow period, set your lead group. As you see, the wrecker is going to come out to pick up Kenneth Algren's number 69. The leader at this point in the race is the number 4 car, Bill Tenney Jr. Your second place car would be the number 3 of Charlie Reed. And in third spot, we would have Jeff Heiser, number 18. Fourth spot, a lap down, Bob Stute, the number 54. Fifth spot, a lap down, the number 5 of Bruce Tunney. In sixth spot, 2 laps down, in car number 92, 9L rather, you would have the number 9L of Leonard Basham, and 3 laps down, you'd have the number 12 car of Jim Waffler. Good luck, folks. Your parking lights are on. This is a car with Anderson plates. This is a car with Anderson plates, a blue and white Plymouth, Indiana, Anderson plates, 49J as in John, 6977. 48J 6977. It's a blue and white Plymouth in the parking lot across the street. Your lights are on. Moving into the pit area, there's the number 1 of Mike St. John making a stop. He had already fallen 1 lap down and lost an additional lap when he was involved in that 4-car confrontation. The number 69 car is off the racetrack. We have wreckers that are out for the number 07 of Dave Staten and the number 39 of Gene Houston.
Calculator available out? No. Okay, I was just wondering. Sure, I'll do it by hand.
For 100 laps is 37:10.
I'm doing it easier.
Yeah, I should have marked down half a minute, but it'd be easier to figure it for half an hour.
We just about have this track cleared. We we could have ourselves a restart at any moment.
Hey, start this race. We're going to get 3 in.
We've done some quick calculation right now. We're roughly on a pace of something in the range of about 400 laps of racing. This is our second caution period. This one to clean up from the multiplicity of wrecks that we had on the racetrack. All of the wrecked cars have been removed. Charlie Reed being motioned back into serial. He will not lose the position as far as on the racetrack from first to second. It'll put him some distance behind that car. Of course, it's running up in that number 2 spot. Number 1 spot, and of course, that is the number 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. Second place is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. In third spot, we would have the number 18 of Jeff Heiser, but let's check. Heiser's car is not on the track. Heiser's made a stop as well. So Jeff Heiser, after running up at the top 3, has made his stop. We also see a stop for George Sutton, who has dropped out. Now we've got trouble with Bobby Ellett's car. Bobby Ellett's number 11 appears to have stalled down here just across the start-finish line. In the meantime, we have brought out alternate Sky. Okay, now Bobby Ellett has gotten restarted. Let's see if that's going to allow us to start this race. There it is, green flag, and the race is restarted. We have added alternates. The number 30 car of Guy Strode. The number 7 of Billy Simmons has been allowed to add to the race as well. We have 41 Jim Coop of our alternates on the racetrack. Coop is the number 12 alternate. And now we see Jeff Heiser back on the racetrack taking a crazy loop down through the intersection. And you can see the smoke that is coming from Bobby Ellett's machine as he is having his trouble. Once again, your lead pack is the number 4, Bill Tunney Jr. up in front. Oh, Bill Tunney Jr. almost taken out by Jeff Heiser at the intersection. Heiser going the wrong way, headed southbound. He should be northbound. And now finally gets going, but Bobby Ellett, who is waving for help, hit by Robbie Loving. That's the second time Loving's been in a crash this evening. And a yellow comes out. Yellow comes out after Robbie Loving hits a car for the second time this evening in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Earlier, Robbie Loving ran into the number 07 car of Dave Staten. That's the second crash for Robbie, but he keeps on going. He doesn't even go to the pits. Jim Coop in the number 41, who I believe is a former Ellett car, now pushes Bobby, who now crawls that machine back to the pit area. Doubtful that the 1984 champion of this race will have a chance to win. The crew pulling the hood pins on that machine, hoping to get it ready to run again. We are working the 45th minute of this race as we get set for a restart. There comes Eddie Deal onto the racetrack. He is our 13th alternate. He joins on lap number 108. Once again, we watch this interesting battle of guys that want to get their lap back. Leonard Basham wants to get a lap back and find himself only about 3 laps down. Up into the wall, there goes the number J2 car, one of our starters, Joe McKinney, in trouble. Leonard Basham and Rance Harmon continue to chase down Bill Tunney Jr., who has led the bulk of the laps now. As we check our scoring, Bill Tunney Jr. took over the lap at the lead of the end. Whoa, he's bumped there by the number 33 car of Tom Stoop and keeps on going. As we were about to say, as we reckon things here, Tunney Jr. took over the lead at lap number 58, has held it since. Stoop did get together with Bill Tunney Jr. with damaged bodywork. He drops out of the race. Now will Bill Jr. be able to maintain up in front? Continues to circulate around the racetrack as if he has no trouble. Charlie Reed is the last car left on the lead lap. So many other guys that had ideas of leading this race have run into trouble. You can see two of them have gotten back around Bill Tunney Jr. to get laps back. Basham in the white and green, number 9. Harmon in the orange, number 16, in front of Bill Tunney Jr. They hit each other coming out of turn number 2. Bill Jr. gets back around Basham, but he didn't do damage to his car. You can't afford that sort of contact in a race, even an endurance race, because you must stay up in front. Bill Tunney Jr. looks at the intersection. Basham hits the brakes. As you see Martin bounce off Loving, and Martin and Loving's hit again. There's the number 91 of Carter spinning. And as a result of all of that, Basham again finds himself about a quarter lap behind Bill Tunney Jr. Bill Tunney Jr. has escaped the ultimate disaster of the Speedrome at the intersection twice the last few laps. I believe the number 16 of Harmon did get around Tunney to take one of his laps back, but Tunney maintains up in front. Charlie Reed in that runner-up spot. Unofficially in third spot, you'd have Bruce Tunney, 1 lap down, losing that lap because of that early spin. And in fourth spot, a lap down, you'd have Bob Snood, although we look at the racetrack, yes, Snood is considerable distance ahead of Bruce Tunney, which, at least in this particular pack, but that could indicate something entirely different on scoring. Back onto the racetrack, the number 33 car of Tom Snood, after the contact with Bill Tunney Jr. at the intersection. Bill Jr. looks at the crossover, tips toes through. The 48th minute of this race, the leader's 118th lap. Eddie Deal moves back onto the pit area. Oh, big crash with the number 91 car of Jerry Carter. He's in big trouble. That'll bring out they're going to put on a yellow, aren't they? Watching to see if they're going to put out a caution. Yeah, now they finally do. So you can see the sparks there at the intersection as Jerry Carter's car got into trouble, and that will bring out a red flag. The red flag comes out with 48 minutes and 6 seconds elapsed time in this race. Much of the field will take advantage of this. The primary reason for that red was the fact that Carter's car threw a tire. As Midwest race fans know all too painfully, a loose tire or wheel can be a deadly thing. Into the pits for a stop. Bill Tunney Jr. is in for fuel and other attention, and they're also going to check out the front of the car, perhaps think about making some sort of tire change or maybe even tightening the bolts on some of those tires to see if there wasn't any damage done when he got together with the number 33 car of Tom Snood earlier in the race. Because Charlie Reed has stayed on the racetrack, when we get back to running, Charlie Reed will be the leader of this event. We are now back under actual racing conditions. find out when we resume the scoring of this race. When we started to roll the cars underway, there we are going to a green. We're getting to the restart of this race. So the race was going to be restarted. We had gotten to 118 laps after that race at red had come out. Now we're working the 119th lap. All those guys that had been in the pit area are being led back onto the track. There's Bill Tunney Jr. coming back onto the racetrack. Charlie Reed is trying to chase him down. Charlie Reed is the leader of this race now as we come down to complete this lap number 119. Charlie Reed in heavy traffic. He finds himself on the racetrack about a turn behind Bill Tunney Jr. Well, that means that Bill Tunney Jr. is about 7/8 of a lap behind Charlie Reed. Now working the 50th minute of this race and the leader's 121st lap. The leader, who is now moving into turn number 3 and into 4, is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Second place car, last car on the lead lap, is the number 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. The guy that is driving really hard on this racetrack, trying to pick up positions, moving around the second place car, is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Watch out! There's the number 02 car, almost taking Wayne out. Wayne made a big move to the inside to keep from getting into that number 02 car. Let's make sure we have the number of that one correct. Now pulled a substantial advantage, throwing caution to the wind up ahead of the second place car. Wayne needs to get a lap or so back to get back in a position where he can contend. Wayne lost several laps in the pits because of the collision and the flat tire earlier. Bill Tunney Jr. hits the brakes of the intersection. Charlie Reed moves up on him. Charlie Reed trying to put a lap on the entire field. Leonard Basham trying to get back around the leader. Basham might be fairly close to getting his laps back if he plays his cards right. Alternate Tom Matthews has been able to join the race for a couple of laps. Oh, almost a big crash in the intersection with Wayne Arnold again. That time it was the 09 of Gary Early, and Wayne now falls back behind the number 4 car of Bill Tunney Jr., and he's racing for a moment with Mike St. John. Again, Mike St. John is ahead of Wayne Arnold in the lap count as you see the 9 car of Basham and the number 4 of Jack Dandy spin their cars to keep from colliding at the intersection. There's Simmons being butted off a car and into the wall over in turn number 3. The racing is unusually desperate at this intersection. Time is there's the Dandy car. Excuse me, Russ Champagne ran over a tire of the number 27 car of Eddie Deal. Champagne into the pit area. Deal continues to roll around to the infield, but that's not completing laps. Robbie Loving has stalled for a moment. Let's watch Loving's number 16 to see if he can get restarted. Robbie Loving has been involved in 2 crashes tonight, has stalled. Now he gets that car rolling, but only for an inch or 2. Robbie Loving trying to get it go. Here comes Wayne Arnold in the number 2 car of number 4 car, Bill Tunney Jr. Loving gets it going again. That battle is not for position between Bill Tunney Jr. and Wayne Arnold. Bill Jr. has to hit the brakes hard, and Charlie Reed puts Bill Tunney Jr. lap down because Bill Jr. had to hit the brakes of the intersection. So Charlie Reed, as he starts his 129th lap, has now lapped the entire field. Working the 53rd minute and the 129th lap, Charlie Reed is in first place. He has a full lap on Bill Tunney Jr. as we see Robbie Loving now move into the pit area. Stalled in the middle of turn number 2, you've got Tom Stute in 33. Watching Tom Stute's number 33 machine in the middle of that turn. The field is flowing around him for the time being, but Tom Stute is in a dangerous position. Can he keep on going, even though that car has stalled? Tom Stute in 33, there's the leader. Charlie Reed almost runs into him. Charlie Reed almost ran into Stute's car. There are the rest of the guys. There's Bill Tunney Jr. underneath along with Mike St. John. There's Bob Stute above him as the field continues to flow around that stalled number 33. Dean Griffin is now on the track. Dean Griffin is the 15th alternate. 42 43 cars so far. 43 drivers have taken part of that race. Look at that tremendous display of sportsmanship. Mitch Dykman in the 85 pushes him out of the way, pushes Stute out of the way, but now there's another car that may be in trouble. The number 66 car, that East Coast modified machine. Let's see, the number 66 car, that's one of our early alternates, Joe Biondolillo, is now pulling into the pit area. He may have some suspension problems, but Stute's number 33 is stalled again. There comes everybody around, and they almost get into Stute. Bill Tenney Jr. has done the impossible. He got his lap back. Bill Tenney Jr. passes, getting around Charlie Reed as they come down to complete the 137th lap, 132nd lap, 133rd lap of this race, as finally Tom Stute pushed into the pit area. A fine sportsmanlike gesture as you see a swerving number 02 car of Mike Bass. But again, the key point is that Bill Tenney Jr. gets his lap back. He is in second spot, gets his lap back from Charlie Reed. Another alternate has been put on the racetrack. Fred Van Vive in the number 142, along with Joe Lowe in the number 20. Billy Arnold was also eligible to run. We did not see Billy on the racetrack. Bill Frazier has rejoined the race in the number 66. He was involved in an earlier big wreck that took out a couple of cars. There goes the number 10 of Rich Fenwick into the pit area. Rich Fenwick is now in the pits. There's the number 60 of Rance Harmon ducking between Bruce Tunney and the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. And you see the number 142 car, Fred Van Vive, has stopped for a moment and now trying to get out of everybody's way as Joe Lowe is trying to find some way through the intersection. Circling around the south section of the intersection to make sure the car will go. He gets restarted. Wayne Arnold is driving the hardest race I think we have ever seen him run here at the Indianapolis Speedrome as the number 101 car, Vernikowski, is out, and I believe Mike Klein has also joined the race. Here's the way the lead goes. The two cars on the lead lap. First and second, 3 Charlie Reed. Second place, the number 4 Bill Tenney Jr. In third place, 2 laps down, is the number 5 of Bruce Tunney. Fourth place, 3 laps down, and charging is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Wayne may be only 2 laps down to this mark. In 5th place is Leonard Basham's number 9L, who is 4 laps down. And in 5th place is Harmon's number 16. He is 4 laps down as well. Watch out, almost a big crash between Wayne Arnold and the number 4D of Jack Dandy. They almost crashed to each other near the start-finish line area. Watching for cars that may have trouble, we see the number 17 of George Sutton appears to have stalled. Sutton gets restarted, so is, look, 5 abreast lined up, no place to go. Look at Bill Tenney Jr. almost to the backstretch getting through there. Now they're 4 abreast into turn number 3. As Bill Tenney Jr. fights to stay on the lead lap ahead of Charlie Reed, and so far, he's fighting the good fight. We're nearing the 1-hour mark of this race. We are working the 57th minute, and the leader's 142nd lap. Racing here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. No holds barred combat out there on the figure 8 course. Once again, we see that pattern where you have something of an S-curve or a loop, depending on where they're on the racetrack. Most of the cars are in 1/2 of this lap. We see that Jeff Heiser has now rejoined the race in the number 18. He is for a moment dicing with Leonard Basham in the number 9. We watch Joe Jackson almost run into Basham and Heiser, and now there's Coop getting into Basham and sending both cars spinning. Coop and Basham collide as Basham is headed northbound. Leonard Basham with that beautiful fast machine Let's see if he's going to try and get going again. Leonard Basham with the bodywork all ripped up in that car now moves back into the pit area. Basham's third crash of the night. Also a crash down in turn number 1. The 02 car has gotten into the J2. The J2, the orange and white car, is Joe McKinney, and the 02 car is the machine of Mike Bass. They have collided into each other. They now gradually get disengaged. Bash's car appears to be okay, but McKinney's car is all ripped off, or ripped up, as you can see on the right side, with much of the bodywork torn away. That car is now on the fringe of the racetrack over in turn number 1, as you see. The field just barely managing to get through. Harmon has to hold up for everybody. You can see the front end of Harmon's car is more and more bashed up. Sideways is the number 9 of Joe Jackson in the approaching field. Will everybody get around Joe Jackson as they head northbound? Joe Jackson now finally gets that car back underway. We are nearing the 1 hour mark of this race. 1 hour and 147 laps completed so far. Actually, it's just about 45 seconds short of that 1 hour mark. Jeff Heiser in trouble, circling around, trying to get that car to go. Waiting for the intersection to clear. Billy Simmons to the number 7. He puts on the throttle. Again, the cars on the lead lap as we see it. Charlie Reed, who has now fallen almost a quarter lap behind Bill Tunney Jr. At one time, Charlie had Bill Jr. a lap down. Now Bill has managed to outrace Charlie Reed and get his lap back. To cut through that traffic. Wayne, for much of this race, after his collision and flat tire and green flag stop to make that change, has been one of the fastest guys on this racetrack, if not the fastest guy. As we move past the 1 hour mark, we are 1 hour and 150 laps. 1 hour and 150 laps. That implies we could have a 450 lap race if we continue at that same relative pace. Cutting through that traffic, hard on the throttle, getting underneath Jeff Heiser, working on Bob Stutz, racing with Mike St. John, Ray Gaddis, and Billy Simmons. Headed northbound as we move another alternate onto the racetrack. This is the number 93 of Bruce McFall, who is the 21st alternate. So far of the alternates that we have had through number 21, only Billy Arnold has not been able to run. We see that Kenneth Olgren is stalled for a moment there at the intersection, now gets going again. Bill Tunney Jr. moving around Gary Early, trying to stay in front of Rance Harmon. Joe Lowe looking for some place to go as he's on the far side of the intersection. Jack Danny back together. Collision between the Kopsky and Fenwick cars coming southbound, but they get unhinged and keep on going. Danny waiting at the intersection for room. Watch out, Kopsky. There's the intersection traffic as Fenwick decides he won't challenge it. Gary Early trying to race there with Bill Tunney Jr., the second place car. Charlie Reed, for this last green flag segment of the race, has been buried in traffic. Charlie Reed there along with the number 14 of Kenny St. John, the 15 car of Garrigus, and the number 8 car of Dean Griffin. As you see, the number 66, 9, and 16 cars, Frazier, Jackson, and Harmon almost run into each other at the intersection. And Bruce Tunney almost spins as he comes out of number 4. The 63rd minute of this 180-minute race. Charlie Reed is having his troubles. He's really being butted around in that traffic. He's running in a group that's been pretty consistent there with Fenwick in the 15 and the number 14 of Kenny St. John. But he has not been able to make any sort of substantial move up through as he now ducks underneath early because the traffic is just so heavy. It has been the fast guy on the racetrack, the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. Wayne Arnold runs over the number 66 car of Biondolillo. He ran over that car and actually ended up tossed into the air. Wayne Arnold back on the throttle. Wayne Arnold almost coming to disaster in the number 2 machine. Now heads northbound again. Wayne will not lift off the throttle. He's driving even harder than before. Wayne Arnold's near disaster does not deter him from using as much throttle as possible. 2 cars locked together, Biondolillo and the number 66 and the number 85 car of Dykeman locked together. They get unlocked as they head through turn number 1. Now a big mess over in turn number 1. A lot of cars ran into each other. Somehow they keep on going as you see the number 30 car of Guy Strode backing out of the way, and a flat tire, if not a broken front suspension for Kopsky, the number 101. Kopsky appears to be the big loser in this one, as he has himself at least a flat tire and maybe even worse damage to that car. Kopsky in 101 trying to lift that car into the pit area. Now moving back onto the racetrack, the number 27 car of Eddie Deal. At the 1 hour mark of this race, this is the way the standings were. Leader is Charlie Reed in number 3. Second place to Bill Tenney Jr., the number 4. Third place to number 5 of Bruce Tenney, a lap down. Fourth place to the number 16 of Brance Harmon, 3 laps down. And fifth place to the number 54 Bob Snoot, 5 laps down. We're watching an impressive battle for Wayne Arnold, the number 2, trying to get back to that lead group. He's been trying so hard, and he's run into so much trouble, but Wayne Arnold continues to run as fast, if not faster than anybody in the racetrack. You see Wayne move around. Number 4, Bill Tenney Jr., like Bill was standing still, and Bill was for a moment. Now Wayne hits brakes to keep from hitting somebody at the intersection, and Bill Jr. goes back around Wayne. Coming out of Robbie Loving's number 16 as Bill Tenney Jr. has the way to the intersection. Loving goes to the pit area. That allows Charlie Reed to get a little close to Bill Jr. It allows Wayne Arnold to pull a long distance away as Wayne charges to that intersection. Again, Charlie Reed the leader. As you see, Guy Strode is in trouble. Yellow is coming out, looking for the reason for the yellow. We are looking for the reason for this caution flag. Enough debris on the track to justify putting out a caution. You can just see it now. It's a piece of metal that appears to be in the middle of turn number 1. Yep. Somebody's huge bumper bars out there, and the track crew is going to go out and get it. They will also most likely go out and retrieve Joe McKinney's car, which has stayed on the inside of turn number 1 for the last 10 or 15 laps. Okay, the number 3 of Charlie Reed is your leader. Second place is the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. Those are the only cars shown on the lead lap. In third spot, the number 5 of Bruce Tenney, a lap down. Fourth place is the number 16 of Brance Harmon, 3 laps down. Fifth place is the number 54 Bob Snoot, 5 laps down. Sixth place is the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, 6 laps down. Seventh place is the number 1 of Mike St. John, 6 laps down. Eighth place is the number 17 of George Sutton, 7 laps down. Ninth place in the number 14 car, Kenny St. John, also 8 laps down. So once again, let's look at your top 10. Only 2 cars to the lead lap. Bill Tenney Jr. in the second place car, and the leader is Charlie Reed as we bring them. No green yet. We do not yet have a green. Well, they're out there racing, but they don't have a green flag yet. I'm not sure what's going on. The field does not have a green, and they're on racing speed, but they're out there racing. I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay, now we finally give them green after they circle around the racetrack at racing speed for a couple of laps under the yellow. You figure it out. His car car coming out of turn number 2 recovers and gets going again. Gap between first place Reed and second place Tunney is over a half lap. We're watching the relative positions of Wayne Arnold and Mike St. John to see if they are racing each other. They are said to be on the same lap, 6 laps down.
At your convenience, come in.
Charlie Reed's in trouble. Charlie Reed pulls down to the intersection, and I'm not sure if he lost the position there. No, he keeps on going. Charlie Reed bumping in there with traffic. He looped down to the intersection for a moment as you see Dean Griffin going into the pit area, followed by Robbie Loving and Tom Matthews. But Charlie Reed had to take an extra excursion through the infield to keep apparently from running into somebody, and that did not cost him the lead. It just cost him some time and distance on the racetrack. Working the 9th minute of the 2nd hour of this race in the 172nd lap of the leader. We see the 09 car Burley bounced off a marker tire in number 4 and literally flew through the air. We see Mike St. John moves back onto the racetrack. He made a stop and took some extra time coming out. St. John's car does not look as if it is well. He now gets onto the throttle and hooks down the pedal to the metal and tries to get it to go, but that car does not look like it's in good shape. Mike St. John, as he bumps over a marker tire, may be in trouble. Charlie Reed, the leader, caught in heavy traffic. So is second place car of Bill Tunney Jr., but Bill may be closing in on Charlie. Mike St. John's car appears to have stalled. He is in serious trouble. The car simply will not run. You can see the hood has been taken off that machine, and Mike St. John, your second fastest qualifier, is in serious trouble. 2 cars have run into each other out of turn number 2. One of them is the number 37 car of Mike Klein. The other one of those machines is the number 142 car of Fred Van Vine. Harmon and Klein tried to get through the intersection. Van Vine's machine over in number 2 may have been stalled. Mike St. John appears to have his number 1 machine back under power, but he lost some ground there, as you see the number 15 of Donnie Garrigus, who is now slow on the inside. The security folks want us to get somebody to move a silver and blue Chevy Cavalier that has Johnson County license plate 41G1009. It's in the lot on the other side of Indy Towing. It's in the lot on the other side of Indy Towing. They said as someone blocked in. The security folks want somebody to move a silver and blue Chevy Cavalier, Johnson County license plate 41G1009. They say it has someone blocked in. Gary Lee, is this your car? Working lap number 178 of the leader. That leader is Charlie Reed. And Charlie comes out of turn number 4, trying to move around Rush Champagne, chasing Harmon, trying to stay up in front. Bill Tunney Jr. still stays about a quarter lap, 3/8 of a lap behind. Charlie Reed, 3-car crash the intersection. Bobby Ellis' car ran right over Joe Jackson's machine, compressing down the roll cage. And also involved in that one, Scott Martin's number 49. And the fans, I believe, are calling for a yellow. They see that Joe Jackson's car was compressed down. Actually, as they put the glasses on it, we see that that car actually did run directly over it. I don't believe it. The fans here are literally calling for a yellow so somebody can go out and see if Joe Jackson is okay after having somebody run over the car. Now the yellow is coming out. Joe Jackson involved in a 3-car crash, a serious incident with the number 11 of Bobby Ellett and the number 47 machine of Joe Jackson. When those 3 guys got together, Bobby Ellett's tires on the right side ran over the left side tires of Joe Jackson's car, compressing down the roll cage for
individual medley.
I believe that the leader is going to put a lap on Bill Tunney Jr. Charlie Reed stayed on the track. Bill Tunney Jr. went in for a tire change, and that's going to put Bill Jr. a lap or so down. Track workers go out to try and pick up some of the metal left over from that crash. And that's a piece of metal you definitely want to get rid of. That's some sort of weight. Sometimes these guys have weights in the cars to try and hold down the rear end as they see it. So we've got the weight picked up. we have the cars that made their stops back on the racetrack, including Bill Tunney Jr.'s number 4. Now, I believe your second place car may be the number 5 of Bruce Tunney because he stayed on the track while Bill Jr. went in. And as I understand it, as we complete 1 hour and 16 minutes of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race, that Charlie Reed is on a lap by himself. The guy that has been on the determined charge of this race so far as they come to the intersection has been, oh, Charlie Reed almost hit by the number 23 of Kenny Payne and the 4 of Tunney. The guy that has been on the determined charge has been the number 2 car of Wayne Arnold. Watching Jim Wobbler excruciatingly slow in getting restarted. Contenders have had a lot of bad luck today in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Leonard Basham involved in something like 3 wrecks. We have not seen Basham's car on the racetrack in the last 10 minutes or so. Rance Harmon remains on the racetrack for the moment, racing with Charlie Reed. Last time we marked it, Rance Harmon was 3 laps behind the leaders. Now shown as 4 laps down. He is trying to get one of those laps back as Charlie Reed almost puts it into the first turn wall. Rance Harmon now back to 3 laps behind the leader. 4th place is Bruce Tunney, who is shown as 5 laps down. And in 5th spot, you'd have Wayne Arnold, who's shown as 6 laps off the pace. Again, Harmon in the red number 16 racing with the race leader, Charlie Reed in the number 3. Harmon attempting to get some laps back. And the way this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race goes is they almost get to the number 85 of Dykeman. Those laps could come back at any time. In trouble, we have the number 93 car, Bruce McFall. McFall is slowing down. He was the 21st alternate of the race. We've seen 22nd alternate Kenny Payne on the track, which means that 50 drivers, 50 cars and 50 drivers have been in this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race in the Indianapolis Speedrome. An incredible figure. Of those cars are on the racetrack and actually running. You see that McFall's 83 is stalled. You see that the number 69 car of Allgren has come to a stop on the west section of the infield, roughly out of the way. And we see that another car is moving back onto the racetrack. Glancing at that machine, it's the number 142 car, Fred Van Vyde. Notice that Harmon is managing to stay ahead of Charlie Reed. That Charlie is now dicing there with the number 33 car of Tom Stutz. And the number 66 car of Bill Frazier. Frazier involved in an earlier mess.
If 3 goes in, he's got to run 1 full lap before he gets the lead.
Understood. 1 lap to get back on the lead lap. Has to pass him before the lead lap and then once in the position. George Sutton in trouble on the backstretch. He pulls into a parking spot there next to Van Vyde's number 142. And you see Jeff Heiser with the number 18 is slowing down and having trouble going as well. Bob Snoot now coming up to try and challenge Charlie Reed to get a lap or so back. Snoot needs to get those laps back in order to be in contention. As you saw, Wayne Arnold hit the brakes to keep from hitting the number 66 car. That's the third of our number 66 cars. That's Al Grindy. Al Grindy has now come out. I believe we also have Danny Turner on the racetrack. Al Grindy, the 25th alternate. Danny Turner, the 24th alternate. As there goes, there's Charlie Reed going into the pit area. Charlie Reed has now gone into the pits. Now let's watch for Bill Tenney Jr. in the number 4. Tenney comes back to get back on the lead lap. Now Bill Tenney Jr. is on the lead lap. As he comes by the turn number 3 area, he can get into the lead. There it is, right now, ducking inside the number 69 car of Algren. Bill Tenney Jr. moves back onto the lead. Bill Tenney Jr. takes the lead. He has completed the same number of laps as the leaders. As you see, Van Vide pushing Algren off the track and also moving a stop. The number 66 car of Bill Frazier. Now, we're watching to see if the number 4 car of Bill Tenney Jr. can put a lap on Charlie Reed. Again, the leader, Charlie Reed, is in the pits. Charlie Reed has decided to make a green flag pit stop at the 1 hour and 21 minute mark of this race. Now we see that Larry Harris is on the track, the 23rd alternate, actually coming out 24th. Bill Tenney Jr. now starts to extend his advantage over Charlie Reed. Charlie, for the moment, still has the runner-up spot, but in another lap or so, he will fall to 3rd spot behind Rance Harmon. Watch out for Jack Danny. Almost took out the St. John brothers and the number 16 of Harmon and the number 07 of Dave State. Ray Gaddis getting ready to come back onto the pit area. Tom Snooten leaving the track, but so far no sign of Charlie Reed as we move past 200 laps. We complete 200 laps in 1 hour and 22 minutes. Once again on a lap to himself is Bill Tenney Jr. in the number 4. No sign of Charlie Reed coming back onto the racetrack from the pits. I stand corrected. Charlie Reed is now back out. I stand corrected. Charlie Reed is back onto the racetrack, but he's lost some ground to everybody else. We'll have to check with scoring to find out how many laps he has lost. So Charlie Reed still is in the top 5 unofficially, but we'll have to double check and find out from scoring in a couple of laps to get the exact gap from Charlie back to the 3rd place machine. Watch out, Jack Danny almost got to the number 20 of Joe Lowe with the number 18 of Heiser as Danny's been all over the racetrack tonight. Jack Danny, the very reincarnation of Lubie Allen here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, who was well known for his impossible avoidances. One car is out there with most of the bodywork ripped off. That's the number J2 car of Joe McKinney that had that bodywork ripped off in a first turn crash much earlier. Look at Wayne Arnold charging up around Dandy and Heiser taking off after Kenny St. John. Wayne Arnold hoping that he can simply persevere and get enough laps back to be able to battle for the lead. In trouble already, you've got Larry Harris, the number 16. Harris just came onto the track. Now he's going into the pits. Here's a good battle. Wayne Arnold versus Kenny St. John. These guys are actually close to being racing for position, but Wayne is about 2 laps ahead of Kenny. Coming on number 4, Wayne ducks down to the inside, has to watch out for Steve Reidner. Steve Reidner, who is our 28th alternate who is on the track. We also see Curtis McMurtry, the 26th alternate, and let's see if we have Rick Hill who's on the track yet. We do not see Rick at this moment. Our indication is that Charlie Reed is 3 laps down. That would put him back in position number 2. Unofficially, he would be in 2nd spot, 1 lap ahead. Oh, the 66 cars have hooked into each other. The black number 66 is Joe Biondolillo, and the blue number 66 is Al Grindy. Both of those cars with the identical numbers have hooked into each other here on the main stretch, and they're trying to get unhooked. Now they get unhooked. Let's see if there are any flat tires to deal with. Nope, they just keep on racing. At the 200 lap mark, here's the lineup that's given to us by our scoring as we see another alternate moves onto the track. Tom Spencer, the 29th alternate. The leader, the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. 2nd place, 3 laps down because of the green flag pit stop is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. 3rd spot, 4 laps down to the orange number 16 is Rance Harmon. 4th place, 4 laps down is Wayne Arnold. Now Wayne is on the charge. When we checked Wayne Arnold at the 150 lap mark, Wayne was 6 laps off the pace. In 50 laps. In fact, as we double double check it, in 25 laps, Wayne Arnold has been able to make up 2 of those laps. Crossover crash, 3 cars involved. Jim Wampler plowed under by Biondolillo and speared by Stute, and that brings out a yellow. 3-car crash takes out one of our top contenders and takes out a couple of the other ones. You saw Biondolillo and the number 66 get involved there, along with the number 12 of Jim Wampler. Bob Stute limps away. There's another one of the number 66 cars, and that is Al Grindy.
Yeah, 3-car race.
Bob Stute, the spark surge now showing under his car as he limps it off the track and back into the pit area. Cars pulls away, the number 66, which I may have misidentified as Biondolillo. That may have been the number 66 of Grindy that was involved in that wreck. The number 54 car of Stute is limped off the track, but needing to hook the number 12 car of Wampler, who was speared by one of those cars, nailed from the rear end as they came to the intersection. Notice how fast our track crew is this year. They are working as hard and as quickly as possible to get these wrecked cars out of the racetrack. A lot of bodywork ripped up on Wampler's car, but that is the sort of thing that could be fixed. We'll also push off the number 93 car, Bruce McFall. Our scorers, let's first check and see who's on the racetrack. We now are developing a 3-car battle for 3rd spot, 4 laps behind the leader. The leader is the number 4 car of Bill Tenney Jr. In 2nd spot, 3 laps down, the number 3 of Charlie Reed. 3rd position, currently 4 laps down, is the number 2 car of Wayne Arnold. 4th spot is the number 16 car is Rance Harmon, 4 laps down. 5th spot is number 5, also 4 laps down, is Bruce Tunney. Nearing the halfway mark of this race, 27 minutes and 52 seconds into the 2nd hour, and working the leader's 211th lap. Ironically enough, the leader is in the back of the pack on one of those odd restart formations we get sometimes.
Probably making sure the thing will work.
Bill Tenney Jr., I'm not sure if he's in trouble or not. He has been circling around the infield for a couple of times. He does have a fender rubbing. He does have the left front fender rubbing on that car, but that should be fiberglass and shouldn't be that much of a trouble. Same situation with Mike St. John's, number 1. He just kind of circles around to the intersection. Perhaps he's trying to keep the engine cool. Perhaps he's just simply trying to make sure that everything is going right. Perhaps he's just simply imitating Gary Lee. I'm not sure. Sorry about that.
Maybe they can't hear you announcing.
Let's see if we're going to get ourselves a restart this time by. Well, there's Bill Tenney Jr. once again kind of circling that car around. Get no real indication that there's anything overwhelmingly wrong. Hey, that's Joe Jackson's car. Look at that. The car that doesn't have any bodywork out there with the blue frame, that's Joe Jackson's car. And I remember back in 1983 in the 3-hour figure 8 endurance race, he had the bodywork ripped off of the car that year, too. I feel sorry for the scorer that has that, because that is Jackson's car. There's just enough bodywork left on it so he could identify it. He could also identify the driver by the blue helmet. That's incredible. That is Joe Jackson's car out there with no bodywork on it. All right, getting back to racing conditions. Bill Tenney Jr., whoops, let's see if he's got problems. We're watching him as Wayne Arnold cuts down to the inside and moves around Bill Jr. He's being passed by Dean Griffin in the number 8. Now here's Ray Gaddis in the 779. In fact, Bill Tenney Jr. may have some problems that are just now manifesting themselves under green flag conditions. Bill is going to try to stay on the racetrack. We're glancing at the tires to see if there's any indication that he has a flat or something like that. But so far, Bill Jr. is not slowing down. Charlie Reed is running in position number 2. Third spot, I believe, is Wayne Arnold, as you see a lot of smoke from Steve Reidner's number 64. Well, Joe Jackson managed to get that bodiless car running for a couple of laps, but now he's come to a stop. He's getting an Alphonse and Gaston act over there with the number 20 of Joe Lowe. Lowe keeps on going. Jackson's looking for someplace to go. The other guy's looking out there thinking, who is that guy? Well, it's Joe Jackson, and he's done it again. Jackson definitely cuts across the intersection as another car that is missing large amounts of bodywork moves through there. That's the numbered car that we were going to score as J2. At least he got something to cover part of that bodywork, but he now pulls out of the way. Reidner pulls to a stop at a dangerous part of the intersection as jammed in. He's almost collected by Billy Simmons and Wayne Arnold. Joe Jackson continues to slowly circulate around the race track. Also, so does Bill Tenney Jr. Either Bill Jr. has a problem in that car and he doesn't want to pull off the racetrack during a green flags period, or he has just simply decided to slow down. It may be that he's developing a flat tire. As we see that car go around the left-hand turns number 3 and 4, it looks as if that tire on the right front is almost threatening to peel off the rim. We'll have to keep a close watch on it this time as he comes through the intersection. Yep, that tire apparently is going to start to come down. I'm not sure. I still get the feeling that one of those tires may be starting to go flat. There you see two cars hooked together at the west side of the speedway. The pink 779 of Gaddis and the white number 8 of Dean Griffin have hooked together. We see beyond the Lillick's cars back on the racetrack, and Joe Jackson continues to drive that bodiless number 9 around the racetrack. Dean Griffin stays stalled over on the west side, but continuing to run is the number 779 of Ray Gaddis. Steve Reidner's on the racetrack. He's the 28th alternate. We have the 29th alternate of Tom Spencer on the track as well. Bill Tenney Jr. is still running, but he is not running at the same sort of speed we saw him have earlier. The guy that is really running with blazing speed on the track is Wayne Arnold. Wayne cannot be counted out of this race. He still has enough time to make up some laps and get back toward the field. Wayne Arnold is moving fast enough now that he could start to challenge the second place car eventually. That'd be Charlie Reed. Reed bumps together with Spencer's 32 and the 14 of Kenny St. John. Let's double check. I believe our leader has just now gone into the pit area. Kenny St. John's car shows a plume of smoke as he stops in the intersection. But yep, Bill Tenney Jr. is in the pits, and they are looking at the rear end of that car, trying to see if anything's gone. So Bill Tenney Jr. is now in the pit area. Charlie Reed was in second place. There's number 14 of Kenny St. John with the blown radiator or water hose off the track. And now let's see how long it takes Charlie Reed to complete enough laps to get up into first place. Charlie Reed comes down to complete one of those laps. Watch out for Dandy and Jim Coop. Reed completes one of those laps he needs to get back toward the lead. Charlie Reed heads northbound as Bill Tenney Jr.'s machine is still in the pit area. It was slowing down. Intersection, watch out, Spencer, for the number 8009 car of Gary Early as Charlie Reed comes down to complete yet another lap. Now the new leader of this race is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Charlie Reed takes over first place with that position, and now there's the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. Bill Jr. moves on to the racetrack just in time, unofficially, to stay on the lead lap. We have another alternate onto the racetrack. That is Gary Cardwell, the 31st alternate. So it is once again developing to a battle between the number 3 of Charlie Reed and the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. As you see, Mike St. John has gotten together with another car. That is the number 02 machine of Mike Bass. Mike St. John trying to lift that car out of the way, not get hit by Tom Spencer. But another factor in this race must be considered, and that is charging Wayne Arnold. Wayne has come from 6 laps down, and he is now starting to get to the position where he may have to call him in a battle, potentially for the lead. watching as Charlie Reed coming out of turn number 4, coming to the line, as there's Bill Tenney Jr. who spun the car and apparently has stalled the machine in turn number 1. Bill Tenney Jr. now has been on the lead lap. As we understand it now, our scorers are telling us that now that Charlie Reed has gotten back on the lead lap, that Bill Tenney Jr. has first place. But if Charlie comes around to pass Bill Jr., Charlie will take the lead. We are being told that right now, Charlie Reed takes the lead away from Bill Tenney Jr. Bill trying to get that car into some sort of gear forward or backwards, but it's obvious that car is hurting pretty badly. And something that we have to keep close attention to, the guy that is right on Charlie Reed's tail. That is Wayne Arnold in the number 2. We'll have to double check with our scoring, but as Wayne now moves around Charlie Reed, that could have been a significant pass. That may have been a significant pass that Wayne Arnold put on Charlie Reed that could conceivably have put, whoops, there's Charlie coming back to the inside. Wayne Arnold and Charlie Reed are either battling for Wayne's attempt to get back onto the lead lap or potentially for the lead.
225.
Okay, here's the situation. Bill Tenney Jr. is now falling several laps off the pace. He is in serious trouble. Charlie Reed is in first spot. Your runner-up car was, as we saw, the number 16 of Rance Harmon, and in third spot was Wayne Arnold, the number 1. So again, as you see Joe Lowe stopping for a moment, and there's Charlie Reed bumping with Gary Early and Gary Cardwell. There was Joe Lowe giving up potential positions on the race to push Bill Tenney Jr. off, and yet Bill Jr. does have a flat right rear tire. You see the number 27 of Eddie Deal came onto the racetrack just long enough to stop on the backstretch. I'm not sure if Bill Tenney Jr. knows that his right rear tire is almost completely flat. And if Bill Tenney Jr. tries to charge at racing speed into that third turn, he'll be in serious trouble as we put out a red flag.
Red?
So the red flag comes out after 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 40 seconds of this race have been completed. It comes after 231 laps of this race have been finished, just past the halfway mark, which would put us roughly on a 450 lap pace. Red comes out because we're concerned about the condition of Eddie Deal. Deal may be in worse trouble than we thought back there in the backstretch. We saw the car stall. We weren't sure if that car had crashed or just stalled. Apparently, there's enough concern for the condition of Eddie Deal over there at the northwest corner of the racetrack to bring out a red flag. This red also is going to give us a chance to consider our scoring situation here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. It'll give us just enough of a break to consider our scoring and to give you the restart lineup and to tell you exactly who is running where and on which lap.
Don't forget it's the announcer chance to What?
Track will determine who leads this race because all 3 drivers have decided to make stops.
Is 16 still on the track?
No.
Is 5?
All of your top 5 cars have gone in to make stops.
Right, there's 2. 2's going to be your leader.
Okay, let's watch that pit exit very carefully. The running order of those cars as they come out of the pits will determine who leads the race.
Hey, here's some of them.
We see the number 22 of Manny Aguilar is on the track. Manny is the 30th alternate. So we've had over 50 cars running in this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race this evening. Now the cars come out onto the track. First out is Wayne Arnold. That'll give him the lead.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who will be coming second out of this group? Who will be coming second out? We see the 16 of Rance Harmon out onto the racetrack. He will take over 4th spot. Charlie Reed is next. Charlie Reed will be 3rd. Watching for Bill Tenney Jr. Will he be able to come out onto the racetrack and take a position? There's Bruce Tenney. He will be in 5th spot. Bill Tenney Jr. follows him through. He'll be in 4th. Now the pace car pulls out of the way, and we're going to have ourselves a restart. 38th minute, completing the 38th minute of the second hour of this race. The leader of this race will be the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. In second place, you'll have the number 3 of Charlie Reed. In third spot, the number 4 of Bill Tinney Jr. In fourth spot, the number 16 of Rance Harmon. And in fifth spot, the number 5 of Bruce Tinney. So Wayne Arnold, after that collision and spin, falling 6 laps down. Watch out, Charlie Reed. He was almost collected by about a half dozen cars as he sneaked through the intersection. And as a result, Charlie Reed lost the position to the number 4, Bill Tinney Jr. Bill Jr. is back in the runner-up spot. The hard-charging Wayne Arnold has pulled off the impossible of the Indianapolis Speedrome. He has come from 6 laps down to lead. Wayne Arnold has not slackened his pace. He goes to the outside to turn around beyond Lillo with the number 101 car, Vernikowski. Now we head southbound, ducking underneath Larry Harris, trying to pass the number 8 of Dean Griffin on the outside. Bill Tinney Jr. had to hesitate in the intersection as he almost got clipped by another car. Runs in front of Charlie Reed as we see it. And again, your fourth place car would be the 16 of Rance Harmon. And in fifth spot, you have the number 5 of Bruce Tinney. Joe Jackson's car continues to run without bodywork as you see the 09 car of Gary Early backing up. Here we go again, folks. The security folks want us to read this. We'll read it as soon as we get these cars stalled at the intersection out of the way. First off, we've got the number 22 car of Manny Aguilar into the wall over in turn number 4, about 40 feet away from where the number 27 car of Eddie Field crashed earlier. We also have Larry Harris stalled and crashed in a crossover between the number 69 car of Algren and the number 101 car of Vernikowski. They have run into each other at the intersection. Algren backs away and tries to get out of the way. So far, Kopsky is trying to do so as well as he's almost clipped by the number 64 of Steve Reidner. And both of those cars are gone. Once again, folks, this is an important point. We need a car moved from across the street in emergency. The people can't get out. It's a silver and blue Chevy Cavalier, 41G1009. 41G1009. If this was me, folks, I'd just tow the car and say too bad, but we're trying to be kind. The leader continues to be Wayne Arnold. We watch him as he cuts through traffic. Again, your second place car. Whoops, we've got a guy that appears to be stalled. That's the number J2 car that's had more than his share of troubles tonight. Joe McKinney may have stalled that car at the intersection. Watch out, Bill Frazier almost got to McKinney, and then we're going to have a red flag to get that machine out of the way. A red flag, we stand corrected, it's a caution flag. It is a yellow flag. We called it a red, and it's a caution. We are bringing the alternate out onto the racetrack. That's Gary Duggar, the 32nd alternate, into the number 81 machine. Once again, folks, here's a car that has to be moved according to the security folks. It is a silver and blue Chevy Cavalier. It's got a Johnson County plate on it. 41G is in George 1009er. 41G is in George 1009er. The car must be moved from across the street. It's an emergency. The people need to move. Frankly, folks, if it was up to me, I'd tow it and say apologies later, but the security folks are trying to be kind to you.
You gotta get them all at the same time.
As you see the order up in front. Again, Mike St. John doing what they call donuts in the infield, trying to find out if there's something wrong with that car. Gary Duggar ahead of the pace car, trying to get back into position where he can run. Again, unofficially, as we see it, the leader is Wayne Arnold of the number 2. Second place would be Charlie Reed of the number 3. Third spot, as we see it now, would apparently be the number 4 of Bill Tinney Jr. Fourth place, a lap down, the number 16 of Rance Harmon. And potentially in fifth spot would be the number 5 of Bruce Tinney. We'll have to double check that. 43rd minute of the second hour. Let's see if Charlie Reed, he's going down to the low side. Looks like Charlie might be able to challenge for first spot. Unofficially, as we see it, this is a battle for the lead coming down southbound to complete the 143rd lap. 142nd lap. Mike St. John trying to mix it up as well. But Mike has had worse luck than both of these guys put together. Mike is able to pull away from those guys. Again, he's trying to make up a few laps. Charlie Reed looks to possibly make a pass on Wayne as they go through 3 and 4, but Arnold manages to pull away if he can find a clear crossover. It's Charlie Reed that has to watch the intersection into number 3. So Wayne Arnold able to pull away in the number 2. Second place to Charlie Reed in the number 3. Third place to Bill Finney Jr., who is all three of these guys have been in the lead. Of our top 5 cars, only Bruce Tunney, as we see it, has not been in the lead, although Bruce may have led a lap or two someplace when I wasn't looking too closely. Jeff Heiser ducking around everybody to the right. Watch the intersection. Wayne Arnold has to finesse the brakes to take on through there. Nearing the 1 hour 45-minute mark of this race, and the leader comes down to just barely complete his 245th lap. There goes the number 93 machine of Bruce McFall into the pit area again. And we see, I think that's number 07 car, our 28 starter, Dave Staten, moving on to the racetrack. Staten looking for a way to go and not finding it very easily. Again, the amazing Joe Jackson out there in that car that has no body work, almost butted into the wall, but keeps on going. 4 abreast going into the first turn with Coop underneath Martin, who was underneath Griffin, who was underneath Bruce Tunney. They all kept on going. Mike St. John charges to the intersection. Wayne Arnold has to tiptoe through as he comes down to complete his 247th circuit of this race. Wayne Arnold is having all sorts of trouble in the intersection. However, as they continue to run 4 abreast through the first turn, he still has that big advantage of about a quarter lap over the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Wayne tiptoes through the intersection as we see guys strode back onto the racetrack. Charlie Reed has an equally crowded crossover and tiptoes through. Your third place car, Bill Finney Jr. was caught in the massive traffic racing with Rance Harmon 16, Tom Spencer's 32, Joe Jackson's bodiless number 9, and the number 26 of Gary Cardwell. 2 cars running into each other. Scott Martin is hooked together with another car. From this angle, we're having trouble finding out which machine. Yep, it's the number 66, blue 66 car of Al Grindy, who was run into Scott Martin. Those 2 cars collect each other with a northbound run out of turn number 2. Martin gets this car partially unhooked. They're trying to get things running, and yep, they're going once again. They lose a lap or so, and Scott Martin has big trouble, at least a flat tire on the left front, perhaps damaged suspension as well.
Same lap.
Here is our group that is running on the same lap. Our scorers tell us the leader of this one continues to be Wayne Arnold in the number 2. Your second place car is the number 3 of Charlie Reed, and now running on the lead lap, you've got the number 16 machine of Rance Harmon as we see it. Unofficially, we put the number 4, Bill Finney Jr. in 4th spot. Apparently, he and Harmon are racing there for position number 3. Then we've got Bruce Tunney a lap or so down. Working the 47th minute of the second hour of this race and 253 laps finished. Wayne Arnold now has the entire field on the racetrack in front of him, save 2 or 3 cars. Charlie Reed finds himself running some distance back, as we see it on the racetrack, almost a half lap behind. Rance Harmon is in 3rd spot, roughly a turn behind Charlie, about a quarter of a lap. And if Bill Finney Jr. is in 4th and on the lead lap, he and Rance Harmon are racing hard for that position, with Bill Jr. trying to go underneath Rance and not able to do so because of the slower car of Larry Harris underneath him. We gradually get closer and closer to the 2/3 mark of this race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. We see that Tom Spencer in the 32 has a flat right rear tire, and he will go into the pit area. We are getting down to the end of our alternates list here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Only 3 of the alternates have not had a chance to run so far. Wayne Arnold continues to cut through traffic with the majority of the cars on the racetrack in front of him. Wayne Arnold now trying to follow Mike St. John past Bill Frazier, Jack Danny, and the number 28 of Jim Hammond. Hammond, the next to last alternate to have a chance to run. We see that Kevin Fegley and Jim Hammond are on the racetrack. They were the 33rd and 34th alternates. As we near the 2-hour mark of this race, that will allow us all 63 cars that qualified for this race a chance to run. And I believe there may be a 64th car back in the pit area who did not post a time but did present the car for qualifying, who may be offered an opportunity to race. Cars on the racetrack right now as we close out the 49th minute of the second hour of this race. Wayne Arnold, the leader, is moving on his 260th lap. He has at least 34 other cars to battle out there, and Wayne Arnold has had trouble passing them. He continues to be at the tail end of a serial of cars. As you see, 2 cars, 3 cars have gotten together. Cardwell's 26, Beyond the Lillo's number 66, the number 8 car of Dean Griffin, and the number 09 of Gary Early. All of those cars get disengaged, although Kenny St. John has to be careful not to get into Early's number 09. Early has damaged wheels and tires just about all the way around. This mess in traffic is actually something of a break. As you see, Gary Early is having trouble getting that car in gear, having trouble getting that car to steer. Wayne Arnold now has much of the gauntlet of traffic relieved in front of him, but once again, as if by magic, Wayne in that red number 2 finds himself at the tail end of a group of cars that extends from number 1 all the way through the intersection. Rance Harmon had trouble there. He has to make a double loop. And that now puts Rance Harmon almost in danger of falling another lap down. Let's see where Harmon is in relation to everybody else in this lead group. Leader is Wayne Arnold in the number 2. Then we go way back in the field to the number 16 of Rance Harmon. We're looking for Charlie Reed's number 3. I don't see Charlie's car on the racetrack. 4-car crash over in turn number 3. It's a 7-car pileup and includes our lead car. One of our lead cars, the number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. is involved in that one. Also, we've got the number 8 machine of Dean Griffin, the number 41 of Jim Coop. There's the number 85 car of Mitch Dykeman, the number 28 of Jim Hammond. The bodiless number 9 of Joe Jackson has a bent frame as a result of this one. Jackson took a very hard shot into the wall. And the last car on this group that is involved in this crash is the number J2 of Joe McKinney. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars involved in a crash, and the one that is taken out from that good position up in front is the number 4 of Bill Tenney Jr. We had just been given a sheet that indicated that Bill Tenney Jr. had fallen out of the top 4. Now this crash, as Bill Tenney Jr. gets out of his car, could eliminate him for good. And Joe Jackson, after that heroic attempt to get back into the race, I'm looking at that machine, and it appears that that impact bent the frame on the front end.
9, 2, 41.
Before that yellow came out for that 7-car pileup, we had been given a sheet that showed the leader being the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, and second place Rance Harmon at the number 16. Charlie Reed was indicated to have been in 3rd spot a lap down, but obviously Charlie made a pit stop just after we were given that information, and Charlie Reed is now fallen some distance off the pace. Bruce Tunney will have a chance to move up as a result. Bruce Tunney very shortly could move up into the top 3 because of Charlie Reed's departure for the race. In fact, Bruce may already be there. A frustrated Bill Tunney Jr. puts his helmet back on. The crew apparently is going to try to get that car fixed. And with the return from a 6-lap deficit by Wayne Arnold to take the lead in this race, anything could happen. Again, we're closing out on the second hour of this race. Wayne Arnold, under caution, is moving down to complete his 265th lap of this race. Rance Harmon, who had some troubles falling a lap down or so, actually Harmon has been the steadiest performer out here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Other guys that had a serious chance to lead have been involved in crashes or have had other serious trouble with their cars. and I think of the number 9 of Leonard Basham, that beautiful white and green car from the Sportsdrome that isn't as pretty anymore after it got involved in 2 or 3 crashes. Bob Stute is still persevering in the number 54, although he has lost several laps. Kenny St. John really was never fast from the start. George Sutton had his serious problems and is now out of the race for the moment. Bobby Ellen was involved in a couple of wrecks. And Mike St. John. I liken the problems that Mike St. John has as he continues to do donuts to Danny Sullivan in this year's Indianapolis 500. You'll remember that Danny Sullivan qualified excellently for the 500, but when he got onto the racetrack, the car simply would not handle. They changed everything possible on that machine, and it still wouldn't go. And the same thing appears to be true with Mike St. John, second fastest qualifier. Nothing has gone right. You can say the same thing about Joe Jackson in the number 9. After ripping the bodywork out of that machine, it looks like he's bent the frame of that one up in front. But don't count Joe out. These guys are crazy. They'll fix that car and have it out again. May look like a Boston crab, but at least will be possible a runner. Okay, there's the number 4, Bill Tunney Jr. driving out under its own power, waiting for Joe McKinney's car to move out, and Bill Tunney Jr., who possibly has led more laps in this race than anybody else, is now pulling into the pit area, looking for service on that machine. Now we're trying to get to Dean Griffin's number 8. Remember, Dean Griffin's car rammed into the number 4 of Tunney, and Tunney in turn got into the number 41 of Jim Coop. On the racetrack right now. Let's see how many other cars move onto the track after the pit stops are completed. We glance back toward the pit area and see the crew is swarming over Bill Tunney Jr.'s machine, trying to get it ready to run. And Bill Tunney Jr. is away. That'll make it 32 cars on the racetrack. And continuing to struggle with that machine is Mike St. John. Mike, who's challenged Wayne Arnold down to the very end last weekend in the 1-hour figure 8 endurance race. Now as we move up to the 2-hour distance with Eddie Deal back on the track in the number 27 and Bill Tunney Jr. the number 4, we are bringing them back to green. Again, as we see it here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, the leader is Wayne Arnold at the number 2, and Rance Harmon, the consistent guy who's going for second spot. And let's see if Rance can hold on to that runner-up's position as we move through lap number 268. About 4 cars waiting at the intersection for that traffic to clear, including Bill Tunney Jr., who loses yet another lap. Now there's a lot of smoke for the number 23 of Kenny Payne. Watch out for Kenny Payne's car. Kenny Payne's showing a lot of smoke. He's only down the track. He is spun. It's going to be a slippery turn number 3 because Kenny Payne's car has looped it over in turn number 3 because of oil or water that broke loose from that machine. And now there's the number 27 of Eddie Deal, who was crashed into the first turn wall, and he is going to try to keep on going. Messes all over the racetrack. Deal getting his car restarted with a lot of bodywork gone. The number 23 of Kenny Payne either flew up a radiator or had something else go. And there's the number 93 car backing out of the intersection. I don't believe that one. You're not supposed to go the wrong way on a racetrack. Flat tire with the number 02 car. That's the machine of Mike Bass, who comes into the pit area. And the 93 car finally is going in the right direction. It'll be a skating rink there for a moment as we see Gaddis pulling into the pit area, the number 779. Wayne Arnold and Mike St. John for a moment are racing each other, although not for position, as we watch the number 27 of Eddie Deal coming out of the racetrack and into the pits. Wayne Arnold trying to move around Mike St. John and put him another lap down. We're watching there as Mike's brother Kenny is racing with the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, who now has the bodywork coming loose. And then you've got Bill Tunney Jr., the number 4. Well, watch out in the intersection for the number 7 car, Champagne. Russ keeps just barely out of the way of the leaders. We've talked about steady drivers and steady performances. One of those steady drivers has been the number 16 of Rance Harmon, who has not done anything fancy. He has not
been in a position where he spun or crashed that much, although you can see his bumper bar is bent back from incidental contact. He's just been out there racing solid. Charlie Reed is now back on the racetrack. He has lost so many valuable laps. Wayne Arnold is letting Mike St. John lead him through this heavy traffic up ahead of him. Again, over 30 cars on the racetrack right now. 4 abreast going into the first turn with Wayne Arnold right behind him. The number 28 car of Jim Hammond having trouble going into that first turn, and he is trying to find a place to park it, actually scrubbing on the wall in turn number 1. Nearing the 2/3 mark of this race. It is still Wayne Arnold up in front. Our runner-up spot said to be on the lead lap is Rance Harmon of the 16, but Wayne Arnold is closing in on him. A continuing battle between Bill Tunney Jr. with bodywork flapping in the number 4 and the number 14 of Kenny St. John, who ducks down to the inside to move around Bill Jr. In fact, as many laps as Bill Jr. has lost, that could gradually become a battle for position between those drivers. We see another car moving out, and this may be our last alternate moving on to the race. No, that's the number 16 of Robbie Loving. We only have one alternate in our list that has not taken a chance to, not given a chance to go onto the racetrack. We have not seen Billy Arnold's machine. We have not seen Rick Hill, but we also have not seen Rick Schaefer in the 13. Watch out, Robbie Loving. You're in dangerous territory out there. Wayne Arnold cutting through traffic, only about 6 car lanes behind the number 16 of Rance Harmon. As you see Loving, who just pulled onto the racetrack, pull off of the racetrack. Wayne Arnold trying to catch up to Rance Harmon and put him a lap down. It's a dangerous situation. The intersection as Wayne picks the spot. Cars are 4 abreast out to the intersection, and there is the Kenny St. John car going through there like he's trying to find a move through a supermarket parking lot. That allows the number 4 car, Bill Tunney Jr., to pull away from the number 14 of Kenny St. John. Now we see that Wayne Arnold is starting to pull in on the number 16 car of Rance Harmon. As we see it, he may be trying to put Rance Harmon a lap down. As we move closer and closer, we are going to be, hold on for it, mark 2 hours into this race and 279 laps finished. Trouble there with the number 32 car of Tom Spencer, who decided to take somebody else a shot in the rear end. Tom Spencer, with water leaving all over the racetrack, is trying to back that car out of the way. Now, that's a dangerous place to go. Bill Tunney Jr. almost ran into him. Also, so did the number 07. He's in a dangerous part of the racetrack. Rance Harmon's almost ran into him. Also did the number 2 car of Wayne Arnold. Tom Spencer, after being hit by about half the field, now pulls off the racetrack. Flat tire and broken radiator. Again, we're watching Wayne Arnold in his attempt to get around Rance Harmon to put him a lap down. That has been done. Wayne Arnold now finds himself once again alone by himself on the lead lap of the racetrack. We're watching Bob Stute as he continues to race out there in pretty good shape. Bob Stute, after his crossover problem, is a 5-car, 6-car crash that's barely avoided by the leader, Wayne Arnold. Who's involved in this mess? Gary Cardwell in 26. The 02 car of Bass, the number 41 of Jim Coop, and the number 16 car of Larry Harris, and finally the number 15 of Donnie Garrigus. 5 cars involved in a crash over in turn number 4. And Wayne Arnold just barely got around it. In fact, as I look at Wayne's machine, I see some fresh damage over on the left side that could have been caused by being involved in that wreck. Jim Hammond pulls off the racetrack. The number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus has managed to limp away. Our scorers, as the yellow comes out, our scorers now inform us that Rance Harmon is 2 laps behind Wayne Arnold, and that in 3rd spot you have Bruce Tunney, who is 3 laps down. Equivalent of a 388 lap pace at the Indianapolis Speedrome as we move into the final hour of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. A 5-car crash has taken us into our latest yellow flag situation. Donnie Garrigus, to the number 15, was able to pull away, but there are still 4 wrecked cars over there, badly wrecked. Jim Coop's number 41 all ripped up in the rear end. Even worse ripped up appears to be Larry Harris's number 16. A lot of damage to the number 02 car of Mike Bass. And in front of it, the guy that may have started everything, the number 26 of Gary Cardwell. And I'm not sure that Wayne Arnold did not get through that unscathed. Rather, I'm not sure that Wayne Arnold managed to escape that unscathed, as you see us pushing the number 75 off the track. Cecil Carr's in that machine. Cecil Carr driving the 75 in relief of Danny Turner. Our latest unofficial standings from Indianapolis Speedrome scoring. Leader, 2, Wayne Arnold. Second place, 2 laps down, 16, Rance Harmon. Third place, 3 laps down, 5, Bruce Tunney. Fourth place, 9 laps down, 4, Bill Tunney Jr. Fifth place, 10 laps down, number 1, Mike St. John. The Indianapolis Speedrome Festival of Wreckers provided by Indy Towing Services now on the track. Jim Coop's battered number 41, which has been wrecked mostly in the front end here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, now has the back end busted up. There goes Gary Cardwell's number 33. Now they'll decide whether the 16 of Harris or the number 02 of Bass is the one that's the worst damage and needs the immediate attention of the guys with the wreckers. You know what they say, you never make a wrecker driver mad. When the world comes to an end, the last people to survive will be the wrecker drivers offering to start your car. Once again, we're watching that odd driving pattern of Bill Tunney Jr. in the number 4 as he circles around the racetrack. Not sure if he's testing that car. No, he almost got together with Mike St. John and was doing the donut. We almost had ourselves a double donut that turned into a cream pie. Well, there are worse things I could have called it, but this is a family racetrack. Once again, let's make a note of an important rule of the Indianapolis Speedrome. This race will be official if 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes are completed. We know there's been rain in the forecast just in case that rain does show up. If we do complete 2 hours and 30 minutes, we will have an official race. And we now see the clock is counting up the 6th minute of the final hour of this race. We have 54 minutes and 4 seconds of racing remaining.
I think the guy that originated this race should be thrown out.
Set for the restart, coming out of number 4. Wayne Arnold trying to persevere. Was that car damaged as a result of that wreck? Wayne lets the Biondolillo car move through. Now he chases off after Biondolillo, moving back around Tom Stute, and has little trouble catching up to Biondolillo, as you see the number 15 of Matthews slowing down and looking for a soft place to lay down. Tom Stute trying to move up there and race with Wayne Arnold. Stute moves around him. Now there's the number 3 car of Charlie Reed trying to take on Wayne. As Wayne simply decided to stroke it, or did that car suffer some damage in that earlier 5-car wreck that he almost got involved in? Rance Harmon in the number 16 is shown as our runner-up car, 2 laps down. Third place is the number 5 car of Bruce Tunney, 3 laps down. You see Charlie Reed on the racetrack. He has gotten he's trying to get one of his laps back from Wayne Arnold, or he is shown as 13 laps off the pace in 6th spot. Moving into the 8th minute of the last hour of this race. Working the 292nd lap for Wayne Arnold, the leader of this event. At one point, we thought Wayne might have trouble with that car. You can see the extra bodywork damage, but that's all it is. He has passed those cars that earlier had passed him. Cecil Carr back on the track to the number 75. Underneath him go the number 5 of Bruce Tunney, the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Charlie Reed is 10 laps behind Bruce Tunney. Bruce is in 3rd spot. Charlie Reed is in position number 6. And Wayne Arnold continues to outdistance everybody else. Biondolo's car pushes going into the right-hand turn number 1. He has to be quick to keep that car under control. And now it looks like Cecil Carr is in trouble. Cecil's number 75 is slowing down, and now Cecil gets back on the throttle. There's Wayne Arnold cutting through the intersection as you see 4 of Bill Tunney Jr. passing Cecil Carr. Cecil apparently has serious trouble with that machine. Wayne Arnold now slips around the number 14 of Kenny St. John. King Kenny, 5-time winner of this race, is not having a good race tonight in this machine that was brand new off the jig less than 1 month ago. The 7 of Billy Simmons comes together with the number 69 machine there for a moment, but he and Kenneth Algren keep on going. We are working the 9th minute of the final hour of this race. Dean Griffin is back onto the racetrack. The number 16 car, France Harmon, goes underneath Dykeman's number 85. As you see, Tom Matthews has stalled his car, and there's Cecil Carr going out of the race. Billy Simmons has a flat left front tire with the number 7. He is going into the pits, showering sparks. Wayne Arnold finds a tiny gap in traffic between the 02 Bass and the number 4, Bill Tunney Jr., as he moves down to complete his 297th lap. Working the 10th minute of the final hour of the race. In this end game, with a 2-lap advantage, Wayne Arnold now finds more than at any other time in the Indianapolis Speedrome season in 1986 that his true enemy is the crossover. His true problem is to keep on running. For the first time, it seems like in an hour, we have Jack Dawsey Jr. on the track. Now that's perseverance. That crew must have done some major repairs to that machine to get it going. If it can go. Jack Dawsey Jr. pulls down into the infield, looks for room at the crossover, and cuts on through just as Wayne Arnold goes through that 2-car crash over in turn number 3. One of those cars, I believe, is Champagne's number 7. The other one is the number 30 of Guy Strode. Our view of that second car is obscured for a moment. We'll have to get the glasses on that one and confirm, yes, it is Champagne and the number 7. He and Strode and the number 30 have run into each other. Wayne Arnold finds a gap at the intersection, has to be careful of those crashed cars as he moves through his 301st lap. Wayne Arnold working the 11th minute of this race as there's the number 4 car of Jack Dandy tucking down to the inside. Watch as the field is forced to funnel through that crash scene too deep. They can't go through there any wider because those crashed cars are still there. Champagne in the number 7 is trying to get his car out of the way, but he's looking for a gap in which to make that move, and finding that gap is not easy. The Tunney brothers for a moment racing each other, and Charlie Reed. Whoops, there's Bill Jr. almost coming up at Bruce as the yellow comes out. We are putting out the caution for this 2-car crash involving Champagne in number 7 and Guy Strode in number 30. The caution comes out on the 303rd lap and comes out with 48 minutes remaining in this race. 48 minutes and 4 seconds left. Again, just in case we do encounter rain this evening in the Indianapolis Speedrome, the information is that after 2 hours and 30 minutes of this race is completed, it will be an official race. Bill Tunney Jr. will duck into the pit area in the number 4. Remember, he had been 9 laps off the pace. Our last update on the scoring was the leader, the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, Rance Harmon in second, 2 laps down to the red number 16. Third spot belonged to Bill Tunney Jr. in the number 5. We now understand that Harmon is 1 lap down to the number 16, and in second spot, the number 5, third spot rather, the number 5 of Bill Tunney, Bruce Tunney, is 2 laps down. So let's do it again because he messed it up a little earlier. This is the latest information we have. The leader, the number 2 of Wayne Arnold. Second place, 1 lap down. Red number 16 of Rance Harmon. Third place, 2 laps down. The white and yellow number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. Once again, Mike St. John, as if he's driving in his own zone, as if he's got his own personal slalom course out there, waving to his crew members. Let's see if he's going to come into the pit area. Yeah. Apparently, Mike St. John decided whatever was going away with that car needed the crew's immediate attention, and he pulls back into the pits. The hook has the 30 of Guy Strode. He is towed out of the way. Looking at Russ Champagne's car, I think I see what looks like a broken shock on that machine. Yep, he's got a broken shock on the right rear, among other damage, and looks like Russ Champagne will be gone for the night. Nearing the end of this race, working the 14th minute of the final hour. It has been a fine race so far at the Indianapolis Speedrome. A lot of guys who have run up in the lead have had trouble. Nobody who has run in the lead group has escaped this race unscathed, this brutal 3-hour figure-8 endurance race. But the driver who has come up the farthest from his adversity to take the lead has been the number 1 of Wayne Arnold. Charlie Reed has led. Rance Harmon has led. Bill Tenney Jr. has led. So has the number 9 of Leonard Basham running up in front. Basham crashed out of the lead. Bill Tenney Jr. had his problems a couple of times and fell back, as you see Russ Champagne now driving his battered car with a broken axle back into the pit area. But only Wayne Arnold has been able to do the seemingly impossible, make up a 6-lap deficit and take the lead with only a short amount of time left to go in this race. The lap counter shows lap number 305. The timer shows we are getting to the final 45 minutes of this race. The track is clear. The pace car moves out of the way. Wayne Arnold is slow on the throttle as you see Charlie Reed and Bill Tenney Jr. move around him. The Tenney pass could be significant. The Tenney pass could be significant. That puts Bill Jr., as we see it, only about a lap or so down. Correction, Bill Tenney Jr. into the 5, trying to get closer to the lead lap. Bruce Tenney, rather. But there's trouble with Jeff Heiser. His car shows a big shower of steam as he barely manages to get off the racetrack just as the radiator goes away. Again, Bruce Tenney manages to get around Wayne Arnold on the restart. As you see, the number 20 of Jim Hammond get together with Harris's car, I believe, and spin. Both of those cars get restarted, and Bill Tenney Jr. is back on the racetrack as Charlie Reed goes into the pit area. Now we're watching Rance Harmon close in on Wayne Arnold. This could be interesting. Now, this could be the significant point of the race. We'll have to double check and see if Rance Harmon is in a position now where he can get closer to Wayne Arnold and possibly move through and get a position and maybe even get up to the lead. Rance Harmon moves around Wayne Arnold as they come down to complete this lap. As we work the 17th minute of this race, we'll have to double check with our scores and see if Rance Harmon is either 1 lap down or getting toward the lead lap. Double check our scoring. Rance Harmon has unlapped himself. We double check our last scoring sheet and we get the indication that Rance Harmon has unlapped himself with the number 16. So Rance Harmon comes back from his adversity as Ray Gaddison 779 and the number 28 of Jim Hammond crash into each other as they go into the inside of the first turn. Checking the relative positions of Rance Harmon and Wayne Arnold. Going northbound, Rance maintains that advantage. Wayne tries to get back around Rance, then get that lap back for himself. As Gaddison, the number 28 of Jim Hammond, still trying to get apart. And the number 1 of Mike St. John tries to go through. Kenny St. John now having trouble as he slows down, but now gets back on the throttle. They have to stop at the intersection for 3 cars, and Rance Harmon stays in front of Wayne Arnold. Rance trying to make it go. Wayne, who's still, oh, there's Rance Harmon almost running into Mike St. John as Mike King took that particular instance to come onto the racetrack, and Wayne puts Rance Harmon 1 lap down. Mike St. John's moving onto the racetrack at that point helped Wayne Arnold put Rance Harmon another lap down, but Rance is trying to come back. We stand corrected. Rance Harmon had managed to get one of the laps down that he had. Our scorers double check and find that Rance Harmon is now 2 laps down. Rance Harmon maintains 2 laps down to Wayne Arnold. Rance trying to get one of those laps back. Comes down to the low side of number 2. Charges southbound. Look at the intersection. Everybody gets out of the way of Harmon and Arnold. And Rance Harmon now finds himself 1 lap down to the leaders. Working the 19th minute of the final hour of this race as Jack Dawsey Jr. pulls off the track. Wayne Arnold again trying to catch up to Rance Harmon as Harmon's almost clipped by the number 69 car of Algren. Now there is Harmon caught behind Van Vive's car. There is Wayne going down to the inside to try to keep that 2-lap advantage. They split Van Vive as they go into number 1. Oh, and the Harmon has to be careful, and so is Van Vive, to get around those 2 other cars on the inside, and that forces Wayne high, and Harmon stays in that position. And now there's traffic between those cars as you see Dean Griffith trying to limp his number 8 off the track. Forty-one minutes left in this race, and 11 minutes left to go before we have an official race in the books.
Right now, this is still correct.
The leader of this one continues to be Wayne Arnold in the number 2. We double check our scoring. 1 lap down.
1 lap. Well, they're right there. That's 1 lap.
Wayne Arnold is in the lead. The second place car is Rance Harmon, 1 lap down to the number 16. In third place is the number 55 car of Tunney's. You see a crash between Tom Stewart 33 and the number 66 car that was started by Gaddis, also was supposed to be run by Carpenter. And we watch them as they go through 3 and 4. And Wayne Arnold gets that second lap back from Harmon as they go through number 4. Wayne Arnold battles back to put Harmon another lap down. Harmon, as we show, 2 laps down to Wayne Arnold. Third spot would be the number 5 of Bruce Tunney. And Bruce Tunney is shown as 2 laps off the pace. 40 minutes left to go. Less than 40 minutes left to go in this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. As there's 2 cars, the big crash. 3 cars, and one of them, the Tunney brothers, is the 101 car. The number 101 car is involved in this 3-car crash. That's Vernikovsky. The second one is Algren in the number 69. And a red comes out for the 3rd car, who was the 3rd place car. Bruce Tunney ended up in top of Akopsky's car. Akopsky's out of his machine. And Algren is still in his number 69. A weird 3-car crash brings out the red flag. Lineup, the leader was number 2 of Wayne Arnold. 2 laps down in the Bruce Tunney machine, trying to see if that one would go. Now as we glance back through our standings here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, we see that we also may have to watch out for good finishes by Bob Stewart at number 54, by Kenny St. John at the number 14, and by Mike St. John at the number 1, who still may be able to get up into the top 10. But now we've got to watch for Wayne Arnold to come back onto the pit area. Rance Harmon is starting one of the 2 laps he needs to get back on the lead lap. And unless Wayne Arnold gets out there fast, he could be in trouble. There is Rance Harmon coming down to complete 1 lap under green. Rance Harmon is now only 1 lap down. We're told that Rance Harmon is now on the lead lap. We are told that Rance Harmon is now on the lead lap. Now, if Wayne Arnold doesn't get on the racetrack pretty soon, it will be Rance Harmon up in front. Rance Harmon now takes over the lead as he passes the pit exit, and Wayne Arnold comes onto the racetrack right now as well. Rance Harmon is up in front. Wayne Arnold onto the racetrack about a full straightaway behind. Rance Harmon down to the inside, around 2 slower cars. Wayne Arnold trying to cut up through traffic. Our scorers now tell us that this is a battle for the lead in the final 18 minutes of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Wayne Arnold at the number 2 trying to cut up through traffic. Rance Harmon about 3/8 of a lap ahead. Wayne Arnold caught in the pits longer than he wanted to be. And Wayne Arnold trying to catch up to Rance Harmon. We go to the stopwatch to get the interval between these guys as we work the 22nd minute of the final hour of this race. Rance Harmon comes out of the turn, cuts through the intersection. Wayne Arnold is a long way back. My stopwatch shows a gap of 8.5 seconds. Again, our scorers tell us that Harmon is up in front now. Wayne Arnold is in second spot. We have 38 minutes, fewer than 38 minutes left to go. Rance Harmon cut through the intersection, taking his time. Wayne Arnold, in a deep and heavy gauntlet of traffic, comes down to finish this lap. And Wayne Arnold now almost 8 seconds behind the leader. Wayne Arnold having little luck cutting through traffic. Caught there with Gary Cardwell's 26. Harmon has to wait up at the intersection, tiptoeing through. Watch out for Joe Lowe and others. Once again, we go to the stopwatch. That gap will probably not be 8 seconds this time, as you see Okomsky's number 101 is stalled. As Okomsky's number 101 machine stalled at the... Oh, he finally gets on going. Coming up to the 37 minutes left to go mark. Rance Harmon comes across the line to complete lap number 328. A massive crash in the back of the pack. Wayne Arnold's on part of it. 4.5 seconds as he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars involved in this one. Pulling away from it, one of the machines, that's, I believe, the number 07. The number 4, Bill Tenney Jr. is involved. The number 07 keeps on going. The number 15 car of Garrigus, the number 16 of Loving. The only one that's involved in that is stalled is the number 26 machine of Gary Cardwell. Cardwell's number 26 appears to be stalled as the race for the lead continues. Wayne Arnold tries to close in. And we're told that Wayne Arnold, another big crash in that field. Another big crash, and Rance Harmon just barely gets around it. Another big crash triggered by Cardwell's machine as Wayne Arnold barely gets through that crash. We're told that Wayne Arnold is a lap down. Gary Cardwell still is staying stalled over there. As you see, the number 22 of Aguilar, the number 8 of Dean Griffin getting away from that. Cardwell continues to run up. No place. Cardwell not able to go actually in the second groove. He continues to sit there. He is not able to run. Again, our scoring tells us that Rance Harmon leads and Wayne Arnold has lost a lap as a result of his overlong pit stop. Wayne Arnold must pass Harmon twice, once to get on the lap and once for position. Gary Early into the pit area with a flat tire. Bruce Tunney back onto the racetrack in the number 5. And Gary Cardwell does not move at all. As you see the number 41 of Jim Coop into the pit area. And there's squeezing underneath that machine somebody whose number I can't pick up. We've got a second stalled car now as the red flag comes out. Rather the yellow flag comes out. Almgren is stalled at the number 69, and so has the number 26 of Cardwell. We are getting close to the point where we will have an official race. We are getting close to the point where we'll have an official race. Bruce Tunney back into the pit area. The leader is now picked up by the pace car. Wayne Arnold is about, well, let's see what Wayne's going to do. He's going to try and get as close to Harmon as possible. He's going to tiptoe up through that field and try to get as close to Harmon as he can. Cardwell is pushed back into action. Wayne Arnold taking advantage of this yellow to get as close to Harmon as he can.
This is Al in the tower, over. They're reporting light sprinkles 5 miles west of the airport, moving this way in a very thin 2-mile wide band. Over.
We see Almgren makes a loop through the infield and now heads back onto the racetrack. All the cars who were involved in that earlier mess are out of the way. We are working the 26th minute of the final hour of this race. It is an official race when we complete 2 hours and 30 minutes.
There is no heavy rain behind that 2-mile band. Over. There is no heavy rain behind that 2-mile band of very light sprinkles. Over.
Let's level with you folks. We've been checking with the weather service control out at Indianapolis International Airport. We get some indications there might be some light rain some distance west of the airport headed in this direction. We will continue to race through light rain, but we won't race through heavy rain. Wayne Arnold now is faced with the problem of passing Rance Harmon twice. Once to get on the lead lap and once to take over the lead. Coming through the intersection, the leader completes his 332nd lap. It had been up to 8-second gap and 1 lap between Harmon and Wayne Arnold. Now it's down to just a couple of car lengths. They're coming up to the number 2J car that's had much of its bodywork ripped off. The body shops are going to like Joe McKinney's car, among others. And Arnold closes in on Harmon. We'll watch out at the intersection for Gary Early's number 09. Finishing approaching the 27th minute of the last hour of this race. Wayne Arnold moving up to Harmon, trying to get his lap back. Wayne Arnold looks to the outside. As you see, Bruce Dunny, watch out, Wayne. There's a slower car there, and he pulls right in front of both of the leaders. They keep on going. Coming down to the intersection, Dykeman and Hammond are there just for an instant as Harmon to the number 2, Wayne Arnold cut on through. Working the 28th minute of this last lap. Wayne Arnold has had to drive his heart out so many times in the Indianapolis Speedrome tonight. Now he's trying to take on Rance Harmon, who wants to become the first driver in the history of this race to not come from the Indianapolis Speedrome and to win this race. Wayne Arnold coming to the line, has to hit the brakes because he sees Dykeman there. Wayne Arnold to the outside, almost gets up into the ball, tries to move around the number 16 car. Somebody may be throwing water on the racetrack. Watch out for the number J2 car, McKinney. They spin around the number 81 car of Gary Duggar. Again, it's physical racing as Wayne Arnold to the low side. Moves through and gets his lap back. They come down to the line, watching for the intersection traffic, which holds off this time. And Wayne Arnold has his lap back as the leader completes 336 laps, and we complete 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 54 seconds of this race. Wayne Arnold, according to scoring, is back on the lead lap. Wayne Arnold, according to scoring, is back on the lead lap. As they come through the intersection, Rance Harmon now sees that Wayne Arnold must complete an additional lap in front of him. Now, if we have a yellow here, then that would put Wayne Arnold about another half of the racetrack ahead, and leaves, he only has to finish a half lap of the racetrack and not an entire circuit. So the situation is now, as long as Rance Harmon keeps Wayne Arnold in front of him, Rance Harmon can pretty much take it easy. Wayne is the guy that has the charge through the 6 abreast cars of the intersection. Harmon wants to follow him through, hits the brakes and lets these other cars head past, and Wayne Arnold picks up a quarter lap on Rance Harmon through 3 abreast racing. Rance is going to take it easy. As you see Wayne cut through there, as Rance is going to come around to that red and yellow number 16 to finish his 339th lap. 31 minutes left to go. Wayne Arnold cuts through a crowded intersection, crash in turn number 2. 66 Bill Frazier, 28 Jim Hammond have run into each other at the exit of turn number 2. Let's see if those guys can get each other disengaged. This yellow could be a major factor in this race as Rance Harmon holds on to the lead. Wayne Arnold is now trying to make up more of that lap. He is roughly a half lap behind him as we watch. There is Bill Frazier backing his machine away from Hammond's car. Frazier in the 66 trying to get it re-engaged so he can run. Bill Frazier and Hammond are able to get out of the way. That's an important point. That means that Harmon can continue to run under green, and so can Wayne. Half hour to go.
No, 2.5 is a race.
Understood.
Okay.
We now have an official race. 1/2 hour to go. 1/2 hour left in this race. 1/2 hour to go. If we do have rain problems, then we have ourselves an official race. Again, we do have some indications of rain headed in this direction. It is now less than 1/2 of a lap between leader Rance Harmon and second place Wayne Arnold. And what promises to be the closest finish in the history of this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race. Wayne Arnold trying to get around Gary Early's machine as you see somebody else cutting through and into the pit area. It appears to be Dandy's and the number 12 car of Jim Wampler. Before this, the closest finish in the history of this race, the 1-lap gap between Kenny St. John and Jim Fox in 1978. But we've got 2 cars on the lead lap, and less than a half lap separates them with less than a half hour left to go. Minutes left to go in this race. 29 minutes left to go in this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Let's go to the stopwatch as the leader comes down to complete his 345th lap and establish the interval between first place Harmon and second place Wayne Arnold. Wayne Arnold trying to cut his way through traffic as they come southbound this time. Watch out for Mitch Dykeman as Wayne Arnold almost gets into him. The gap is 13.7 seconds. Look, there's the number 37 of Tom Spencer spinning. And the intersection, he's hit by 2 other cars. Tom Spencer hit by Van Vive's 142 and the number 109 car of Gary Early, peeling back the suspension on Early's car. Tom Spencer broadside to the field as that brings out a yellow. It brings out a yellow, and now it remains to be seen what is going to happen. Wayne Arnold continues to try to cut up through the field. Wayne Arnold taking a shortcut through there. Now watch and find out what Wayne's going to do. Wayne is going to try to treat this like a NASCAR start, and he's going to try to pull right behind. No, he's going into the pits. Wayne Arnold is going to make a pit stop. Wayne Arnold, instead of staying out to challenge, is actually going back into the pit area. Now, we stay under yellow, and Rance Harmon comes across to finish lap number 347. Wayne Arnold has not yet completed that 347th lap. I stand corrected, 346. Wayne Arnold is going to be a lap down if he doesn't make this run shortly. Now, Wayne had been on the lead lap. He moves into the pit area as the clock shows 2 hours, 32 minutes, and 42 seconds. We are going to bring out a push truck to get that number 66 car out onto the racetrack. The leader is on his 346th lap. Wayne Arnold has not yet completed that lap, I believe. Now he's back onto the racetrack. Wayne is going to be able to come across and stay on the lead lap as he cuts through the intersection. But he finds himself on the tail end of the lead lap. So Wayne was able to make that final stop. Whoops, no, Wayne, if you do that, you're going to fall a lap down. Correct me, if he doesn't go around, he loses the lap.
That was his decision. That was his decision.
Okay, we double-checked it, and Wayne Arnold perhaps has made a major tactical error because he did not come across the line and finish that lap. He may have taken himself a lap down. We'll have to double-check with the scorers, but because he did not come down through the infield and come across the start-finish line, Wayne may have cost himself a lap. A strange situation. Remember, the pits are part of the race course. Rance Harmon and Wayne Arnold were still on the lead lap. Wayne had to come through the pit area, come down across the start-finish line, and come up behind the field. It may be that Wayne Arnold, who fought so hard to get that lap back, may have, through a strange tactical error on his part, lost yet another lap. Again, we're not sure. We're going to have to double-check on this. But it would appear that Wayne Arnold not only that late pit stop, which he hoped would help him because he didn't come across the line, may find himself in trouble again. We're in the final half hour of this race, working the 35th minute of the final hour. Rance Harmon completes his 351st lap of this race. He has now completed more laps now, as we see a lot of smoke from Van Vive's number 142. He's completed more laps than Bobbiella did under the first year of this racing format back in 1984. As you see the number 20 car of Joe Lowe spinning coming out of number 2. Wayne Arnold last year to win this race completed 366 laps. Still lots of smoke from Van Vive's number 142, as you see with sliding Jack Dandy, the number 4D car, and now more problems for Bill Tunney Jr. The car appears to have completely lost power, and the early leader of this race appears to have completely stalled out his machine. Rance Harmon continues to run up in front. Wayne Arnold in second, trying to cut through that traffic with the bodywork battered and bent on that machine. Again, we tried to emphasize the situation we had. Wayne Arnold, in order to stay on the lead lap, had to come across the start-finish line. Van Vive is stalled in the middle of the intersection. He may be in trouble. Watch out. Now he keeps on going. Again, the situation was that Van Vive, now that Wayne Arnold, had to come across the start-finish line to complete the same lap that Rance Harmon had completed. Instead, he decided to duck into the tail end of the field. And as a result, that probably has put Wayne Arnold one lap down. Not that Wayne is making any progress in catching up to Rance Harmon, mind you. As we see the four-car crash developing, Joe Lowe has climbed over Algren's number 69. We saw the 101 machine of Bukowski getting together with Dobbs Stutz number 54. But again, everybody keeps on going. One of the key points in this end game at the Indianapolis Speedrome, as you see Algren's battered number 69 continue to go, is that Wayne Arnold really hasn't made that much of a gap into the lead that's currently held by Rance Harmon. complete the 359th lap of this race. 23 minutes of this race are left to run. We continue to watch and see if we've got any sort of rain problem heading in this direction, but so far we stay dry. With 23 minutes of racing time remaining, if it's a slow-moving rain front, we should be able to get everything completed under the green. We see another car that's out there with most of the bodywork ripped off, and that is Jim Wobbler's number 12. Only a body panel on the left side serves to identify Jim Wobbler's number 12 machine. We had a similar situation with the number 9 car, Joe Jackson, but of course Jackson's car was bent up in a second wreck and is out of the race. See, Mike St. John has moved around Harmon, so has the number 69 of Algren. Rance may be taking it easy, but again, there are some risks in taking it easy. 22 minutes of racing left. Mark, 22 minutes of racing left at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Wayne Arnold continues to try to cut into that lead, but he is a lap and a half behind. Rance Harmon now finds himself in a position where he must be excruciatingly careful in tiptoeing through that intersection. He can afford no mistakes. Even though Wayne Arnold is a lap and a half behind, a lap and a half is only about 30 seconds or so of racing. And 1/2 minute's mistake could cost you the $10,000 first prize. Rance Harmon tiptoeing easily through the intersection, taking it easy. Wayne Arnold must battle through traffic 3 abreast in front of him. Mike St. John almost ran into Bill Tenney Jr.'s car as he came through the intersection, having to cut wide to the right. Mike St. John is charging very, very hard. He feels he may have an outside chance of winning this one. Oops, Harmon's almost ran by Algren's machine, and Harmon is going to give Algren a lot of room as he pulls away, going through turn number 2 of his 377th lap. Joe Lowe with a flat tire stopping out of the race. We're now starting to see sparks from another car. Let's see which machine that is. Again, there's a lot of bodywork ripped away from that car that's moving through there. It is Dandy's number 4, which is showing a lot of sparks. Perhaps the tire is going down. Perhaps it's just some more of that bodywork that is starting to drag on that number 4J. In fact, whoop, I think it's the fuel tank. I'm not sure, but I think Dandy's number 4s may be dragging the fuel tank. It's the car that has the bodywork ripped up as he goes through number 3. I think that sparking is coming from Dandy's fuel tank. Okay, we're watching Jack Dandy's car. There's a big object, and oops, he goes spinning, and there's a flame developing. He set his fuel tank on fire. Jack Dandy's in big trouble. He set his fuel tank on fire. He's trying to drive away from it. Jack Dandy's in the middle of a major conflagration. Jack Dandy is dragging what appears to be his fuel tank. Now it's a big fire. We're going in there with the fire powder, trying to put it out as the red comes out. The Washington Township, Warren Township fire guys are automatically on the scene. Okay. It's a frightening moment as Jack Dandy gets out of the car. He dragged his fuel tank so long, I think basically he finally wore through the metal walls of that fuel tank and set himself on fire. Frightening moment there as Jack Dandy, dragging his fuel tank for the better part of 4 or 5 laps, finally wears through the walls of that tank and sets himself on fire. Very quick work gets that fire out. Here's something you won't see in Santa Air.
What is that?
Well, no, you won't see the flame. You're looking for the dirt in.
Notice how quickly that the guys came out with the fire bottles as soon as Jack Dandy was there. And the Warren Township Fire Department Emergency Response Unit was ready just in case there was a major conflagration. Oh, it certainly was a major conflagration, no doubt about that. The race has stopped with 19 minutes and 31 seconds remaining. So the one lap gap between 16 and 2 remains. Right? The leader. We have 3 number 16s out there. The red one of Harmon is the leader. The red and white car is that of Larry Harris, and the white car is that of Robbie Loving. There's only one number 2 out there, and that's Wayne Arnold's machine. He is in the runner-up spot, a lap down. There you see the 2 rows of the lineup. That's approximately the order that which they were running on the racetrack at the end of that 367th lap. So we'll push the number 58 of Matthews out of the way. Get regardlessly Bill Tenney Jr.'s car where it is, and we've got to pick up a piece of what, sidebar or whatever. Okay, we have the yellow out as we continue to score these laps, and now the green comes out again as Rance Harmon heads northbound, and we resume this race with less than 20 minutes left to go. And we start to get the indication that a very light rain is falling at the Indianapolis Speedrome. If it is yes, the rain is starting to increase in intensity. We watch as the rain starts to pelt the Indianapolis Speedrome. Now, how long will we go under these rain conditions before we slow them down for the remainder of this race? We continue to try and race this one under the rain. Rance Harmon and everybody else tiptoeing around the racetrack. To a certain degree, if you have slick tires that have warmed up, you can run at a fairly good pace under rain. But if the rain starts to get even heavier and heavier, then you have to slow down. They discovered that the hard way last Sunday over at Darlington during the Winston Cup race. Rance Harmon stays out in front of that field. We watch as Wayne Arnold desperately tries to move up through that pack. He's trying to get around a couple of cars. He's trying to pass the 2J. He has already gotten around the number 41 of Jim Coop. Now he's going above Simmons, number 7, skating there on that high side of the racetrack. And talking about racetrack, here's Rance Harmon coming across the line to complete the 370th lap of, and also we are working the 42nd minute of this race. Rance Harmon continues to tiptoe out there. Wayne Arnold is trying to charge across a wet track to make up this ground. Rance Harmon is really taking his time. Scott Martin moves around Rance Harmon and moves up to challenge Jakomsky. Now we're watching Rance Harmon really taking it easy. There's the number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus trying to move around Rance. Rance again is simply trying to hold his own out there. Wayne Arnold is trying to charge. As the rain continues to fall on the Indianapolis Speedrome, we are working the 43rd minute of this race. Rance Harmon is up in front. Looks down to the inside, tucks between those 2 slower cars. An important buffer for Rance Harmon, who now has himself 10 slower cars between he and Wayne Arnold. Wayne Arnold must pass those 10 cars, then pass Rance Harmon a second time to take the lead. Rance has decided he won't try to challenge the number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus. Now he moves back around Donnie, as again Wayne has those slower cars, 8 slower cars between he and the leader. 17 minutes, less than 17 minutes of racing remaining as we race them in the rain at the Indianapolis Speedrome. We had been told that this light rain was headed here by the National Weather Service. It was just a matter of when it would exactly show up. Now there's Rance Harmon tiptoeing easily to the underside of Scott Martin as he moves through the 3rd and 4th corners of his 375th lap. Rance Harmon has already set a brand new record in the Indianapolis Speedrome, a record for the most number of laps completed under this new format for the race, which is now in its 3rd year. We'll watch out Rance Harmon for Kevin Fegley. He managed to get through. Wayne Arnold now has 3 cars between he and Harmon, and now he's got to watch out. There's 2 or 3 cars in the intersection. Wayne cuts between all of them. Now, Wayne Arnold has 16 minutes of racing in which to get back around Rance Harmon and pass him a second time. And that's assuming that we stay green and continue to race for these final 16 minutes. Indications are that the rain has started to slacken. That could mean the track could dry, and that could mean the racetrack could start to pick up. But which driver would that favor? Wayne Arnold had to nail the brakes to keep from nailing the number 20 of Joe Lowe. He keeps on going. Rance Harmon now closes in on Jim Wampler's machine, has to watch out for Dykeman of the number 85. Wayne has two slower cars between he and the leader, Harmon. Harmon looks to get underneath the number 64 of Reidner and does so. Now comes to the intersection, has to watch out for other cars as he almost slid back up into Reidner. And using this traffic, there's Wayne Arnold closing in. Mark it, 15 minutes left to go. Crossover crash between, oh, there's Harmon and the number 2 of Wayne Arnold involved in that crash. They kept on going. The main part of that crash was between Harmon and, rather, the number 101 car of Volkovsky and the number 12 car of Wampler. There are other cars that are stalled at the intersection. Harmon, even though he bumped into some of the cars in that crossover crash, appears to have gotten away with it in the best, but Wayne Arnold may be in trouble as a result. Let's see if he can keep on running. Wayne Arnold tries to keep on going as the yellow comes out. This is really a battle of survival now at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Who can last the longest? The first part of the crash was between Reidner, the 64, and Wampler, the 12. Martin of the number 49 and the number 66 car were involved in that one. That's the black number 66 machine of Joe Biondolillo. Okay, we're coming down to the end of this race. Under yellow, we have a couple of pieces of bodywork to pick up, and we need to push Jim Wampler's battered and beat up number 12 out of the way. 14 minutes of racing time left. 14 minutes of racing left at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Every second ticks away for Wayne Arnold, takes away a chance for him to make up his lap on Harmon. The field will now be led through there, as you see Kevin Fegley pushing the number 8 car of Dean Griffin out of the way as the field picks up Harmon, the leader, and second place car of Reidner now drives off the track. Some indication that Reidner may be hurt out there. Correction, Wampler may be hurt out there, and we are sending the ambulance out there to take care of him. We are sending the ambulance and the med techs out there to try and check up on Jim Wampler to see if he was hurt in that wreck. As you can see, the guys are out there checking things out. Time marches on. Fewer than 13 minutes of racing time remaining. We still have that very light rain that is falling. We are checking out Jim Wampler with the ambulance on hand to see in what condition he is. As the ambulance stays out there, the gap between those two guys up in front stays about as it is. You saw that crash between Reidner and Wampler almost take out the leaders. I think Harmon bounced off one of those cars, and Wayne Arnold did as well. Right now, we keep these guys under yellow because of this accident that apparently has some concern about the condition of Jim Wampler, as the med techs are literally all over what's left of that machine. With the bodywork ripped off with the exception of the panels on the left side, you can virtually see all inside of that machine, see how the framework is done, and that also gives the med techs more access to Wampler if he is hurt. Leader Rance Harmon stays behind the pace car. The clock continues to tick away. 11.5 minutes left to go. The med techs have Wampler out of the car. He's obviously not feeling too good, but the med techs have Wampler out of the car.
He's on his feet.
He is on his feet. He is out of the machine. He is gradually being taken to the ambulance. So we will put Wampler in the ambulance and clear him from the racetrack. We will then try and get to that car and push it out of the way.
they're reporting another batch of light rain 20 miles west of the airport.
And we will try and get this race restarted under racing conditions. And when we restart this race, we will have only 10 minutes of the event left to go. Wobbler's car is pushed off the track. Wobbler in the ambulance is now being taken off the track as well. We are close to a restart of this one, but Jim Coop's car appears to have stalled. Okay, Jim Coop's car is underway. Jim Coop stopped for a moment, now he's underway. He may have just been over there for a second to literally talk to his crew. 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes to go. We're now in the final 10 minutes of this race. The pace vehicle pulls out of the way. Rance Harmon gets on the throttle, warily checks the intersection with Wayne Arnold in tow. Had Wayne Arnold completed that lap after his pit stop, he might be in a position now to challenge for the lead. Now, as they cut through that crowded intersection, Wayne Arnold must now clear the number 3 of Charlie Reed to have a shot at getting the lap back from Harmon's number 16. And 17 seconds left to go in this event. Still some light rain to contend with and other indications that rain may be coming. Will these guys that are on the racetrack realize that they are dealing with a rain condition? Wayne Arnold can't afford to be conservative. He must go for it all. You see Charlie Reed is up there in that race trying to make something go of it. As you see Wayne Arnold trying to go to the outside of Harmon, and look at this. Charlie Reed is also wasting rain at all. And there is Wayne getting his lap back. That's the first big mark. Mark it down with 51 minutes and 15 seconds completed in this final hour of the race. With 385 laps of the leader completed. That Wayne Arnold got his lap back. But again, Rance Harmon is in the position where if he stays behind Wayne Arnold and keeps Wayne in his sights, he has the race won. Wants that lap back. He's racing Wayne Arnold through 2. They come to the line and almost get into Guy Strut, and look at that. Rance Harmon powers way back around Wayne Arnold. That's got to be discouraging. Rance Harmon, I believe, may not be aware that he is a lap up on Wayne Arnold. He's not driving like a guy that is trying to protect a position. Rance Harmon, because you see Jim Coop has crashed in turn number 3, Rance Harmon is driving like a guy that thinks that he is in a battle for his life. With 8 minutes and less than 8 minutes left to go, as Jim Coop gets his car out of the race, Rance Harmon is driving like a guy who thinks he is battling to save a race. Wayne Arnold goes down to the inside, no room there. Charlie Reed follows within striking distance. Watch at the intersection this time, it'll be just barely clear. Again, I don't know if Rance Harmon knows that he has a lap lead on Wayne Arnold. Headed southbound one more time through a clear intersection with less than 7.5 minutes left to go. Rance Harmon has that advantage. Second place is Wayne Arnold. Again, the strategy these guys may have may be to a point that Wayne thinks he is waiting for a last lap pass, and Rance Harmon is trying to stay out in front, period. Okay, Wayne Arnold's got troubles with his car. Let's watch that. We understand that he may have trouble with the suspension on that machine. Wayne Arnold may have problems with the tie rods on that car. Let's watch him as he goes through these left-hand corners 3 and 4. Yeah, he does have tie rod problems. His front wheels are pointing in different directions. The car wants to constantly turn left, and Wayne Arnold is fighting that car in order to get it to turn right through 1 and 2. Rance Harmon, watch out for the intersection. Wayne Arnold coming back to the inside. Moves around him and gets the lap back. Rance Harmon on the outside powers past again. Wayne's car with the tie rods with the front suspension broken finds that he cannot turn that car the way he wants to. And with just over, whoa, watch out! Rance Harmon almost ran into the number 20 of Joe Lowe at the intersection. A frightening moment for the leader. Watching at the intersection is Bruce Tunney has to pick between cars. And now there's Charlie Reed trying to move around Rance Harmon. I'm sure right now Rance realizes that Charlie is some distance back, but Rance is not giving up. He is really racing those guys hard. Crowded intersection, and Charlie Reed goes through around the battered number 69 machine. In the final 6 minutes of this race, Rance looks for an opening and finds it. They have a phalanx of about 6 or 7 cars wide in front of them. 5.5 minutes left to go. Charlie Reed has pulled ahead of Harmon, getting a lap back from him. Wayne Arnold is trying to close in on Harmon, but you know that Wayne Arnold has that broken tie rod, something broken in the suspension on the left front, and Wayne's car constantly wants to turn left. It's a miracle he can get it to go right. Rance Harmon clears turn number 2, looks for the intersection and finds plenty of room, but there are a lot of slower cars in front of them. Mark it, 5 minutes left to go. Mark it, 5 minutes left to go in this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. Wayne Arnold finds himself caught with 3 cars between he and Rance Harmon, including Mike St. John's number 1. So Wayne finds the handling problems of that car are so difficult for him to fight. Wayne Arnold, an excellent driver. His courage, his tenacity, his driving ability has been shown time after time. But when the car is broken and you're fighting a race machine that doesn't want to turn on you, then that shows your ability. As a tribute to Wayne Arnold's driving skills, that he is able to keep that machine going with the broken parts on the front suspension. Fewer than 5 minutes left to go in this race. Rance Harmon is headed toward a $10,000 payday. Wayne Arnold, a car crashing into the wall over in turn number 1. I'm not sure which one it was. We'll have to put the glasses on it. It's Manny Aguilar's number 22. Manny Aguilar's 22 is crashed into the wall, and he jumps out of the machine. And that happens with 4 minutes left to go. Fewer than 4 minutes remaining in this race. And I'm sure we'll keep this one green to a finish. As you see Harmon going above that battered 2J machine once again, there are a lot of slower cars, and Wayne Arnold is still trying to catch up to Harmon. Still trying to get Rance caught behind those slower machines. Comes up on the 2J and almost forces him wide. We see the 54 of Bob Stute pulling off the racetrack. Bob Stute fought a magnificent fight, but he too must give it up. Rance Harmon is really pussyfooting through this traffic. He is not really pushing it that hard as he goes around beyond the little 66. Now closes up on Fegley's 85, every inch of it with Wayne Arnold on his tail. 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left to go in this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. As now, Rance Harmon caught behind 2 cars running into each other, but he takes advantage of some traffic as well, as Wayne Arnold almost moves into the Van Dyke car. And Rance Harmon stays on that 1-lap advantage for Wayne. When we get down to the mark at the end of this race, we'd like you to count down the final 10 seconds with us, and hold on, we'll be doing that shortly. Let's see who's... Oh, we saw some smoke from the front end of Harmon's car that would seem to be more than just tire smoke. I wonder if his radiator is going, if his car is overheating. Let's keep a watch on that as well. Wayne trying to go underneath Rance Harmon. Again, we're not sure if those guys realize that they are 1 lap apart of the race count. We're moving to the final 2 laps of this race. 2 guys like battered heavyweights in a 15-round fight, like 2 battered football teams going into overtime. Going at each other in the longest and most prestigious and most unusual stock car race of the Indianapolis Speedrome. Oh, we've got 3 cars crashing in front of the leaders. Wayne Arnold has to hold up and tiptoe through there as a 3-car melee involving Biondolillo's number 66, the number 66 car of Bill Frazier, and the number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus. And you see Rance Harmon bringing his car to an end as we have ourselves a red flag. A red flag with 1 minute and 40 seconds of racing time remaining. This big 3-car wreck has brought a temporary halt to the race.
Find them.
With 1 minute and 40 seconds left in this race, a 3-car crash has brought out the red. The crash has taken out Joe Biondolillo's number 66, the black car. It has taken out the pink and orange, well, the pink number 66 car of Bill Frazier and the white number 15 of Rich Fenwick.
It's 0166. It's not 66. It's not 66. It's not beyond Dillo. It's 01.
Okay, we stand corrected. It's not beyond DeLillo's car. It's the number 07 of Dave Staten. Dave Staten and the number 07 was involved in that wreck. Sorry, Joe, we didn't mean to put you down. And just as we go out to clear this wreck, more rain starts to fall. 404 laps completed under these circumstances, and what a restart we potentially could have if we can get it restarted.
Okay, play up Wayne's predicament that he's 1 lap down and lost.
Okay, once again, we want to make sure that everybody realizes and understands the situation between the leader, Rance Harmon, and the number 16, and second place, Wayne Arnold, and the number 2. Rance Harmon has a 1-lap advantage over Wayne Arnold. Rance Harmon does have a 1-lap advantage over Wayne Arnold, and it happened during an earlier yellow period. In that period, Rance Harmon was leading and Wayne Arnold was in second. Both cars were on the lead lap. Wayne Arnold went back into the pit area to make a stop. He made a pit stop and came back on the racetrack. He had not yet completed the same lap that Rance Harmon had completed. Wayne Arnold needed to come out of the on-track pit gate, come out through turn number 4 and across the start-finish line, then loop around turns number 1 and 2 and catch up to the pack. Instead, Wayne Arnold made a left-hand turn and joined the rear of the pack, so he did not complete the lap that he had started when he went in to make the pit stop. As a result, Wayne Arnold lost 1 lap. Wayne Arnold, because he did not come out from the pits, cross the start-finish line, stay above the marker tires, and start the same lap that the leader was on, did not complete that lap until he came across the start-finish line after he cut to the left and joined the rest of the field. So Wayne Arnold, with 1 minute and 40 seconds left in this race, finds himself a lap down. Bill Frazier's car off of the number 15 car of Donnie Garrigus. We have already removed Dave Staten's number 07. Now we're trying to get the Indy Towing Service guys to figure out a way to get those cars apart. And again, that's not easy. What? 07.
Okay, 07.
66 Frazier.
Okay.
15 Garrigus.
101.
Okay, we stand corrected the third time. We now understand it was the 101 car. But Bernikowski was involved in that one. We'll get it right, folks. Don't worry. Okay, here is your top 5 officially as we move into the final 1 minute and 40 seconds of this race, as you were 100 seconds of racing left. The leader, the number 16 of Rance Harmon. Second place, the number 2 of Wayne Arnold, 1 lap down. Third place, the number 3 of Charlie Reed, 18 laps down. Fourth place, the number 5 of Bruce Tunney, 21 laps down. Fifth place, the number 1 of Mike St. John, 22 laps down. That is official. Donnie Garrigus' car now removed from underneath Bill Frazier's number 66. Pushing in Garris' machine out of the way, we have hauled the number 22 car, Benny Aguilar, out of its precarious perch against the first turn wall. Now we're trying to get Bill Frazier's number 66 out of the way. As soon as we get Frazier's machine out of the way, we'll be set to run the remainder of this race. Well, we could have problems with our friend Joe Biondolillo. Looks like he's running on a soft right front tire. Biondolillo realizes he has the soft tire and moves into the pit area. That'll give him a chance to get restarted. the way. We'll need a push for Tom Spencer's number 32. Now we've got another wrecker out here, for which car I'm not sure. The wreckers are not allowed to take part of the race. But we won't need them. Well, what's going on now? They're having trouble getting the wrecker squared away to get Bill Frazier's car off the track. Now we're going to push the number 37 car of Mike Klein out of the way. And with 100 seconds of racing remaining, 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Wayne Arnold has an all but impossible task: to pass Rance Harmon twice. Once to get on the lead lap, and a second time to take over the lead. Green is out, and we put the timer back on. Wayne almost spins it going into number 1. Remember, he has a broken suspension part. Harmon comes underneath the number 2J car and moves around Bob Snoot, who has managed to move back onto the racetrack. 1 minute and 20 seconds left in this race. Headed northbound, watch out for Kevin Fegley's machine. Bob Snoot actually running even with Wayne Arnold as they go through 3 and 4. 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. Harmon comes down to complete lap number 408. Wayne Arnold continues to try as hard as he can, but the broken suspension part of the left front will not let him go. Less than 1 minute to go. Ladies and gentlemen, when we reach the final 10 seconds of this race, help us count down to victory for Rance Harmon, it would appear. But Rance now has to get around Beyond-A-Lillo. He goes through and Wayne Arnold follows him through with 40 seconds left to go in the race. 40 seconds infers that we will have ourselves another 2 laps of racing before we are finished, maybe 3. Going through 3 and 4, 30 seconds left of this event. Arnold bumps the marker tire. There is Robbie Loving, who looks like he would like to race with these guys for a moment, but now Arnold and Harmon leave him some distance behind. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to count down the final 10 seconds of this race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the 3-hour mark has been reached. The 3-hour mark has been reached. The checkered flag is being shown. Rance Harmon must come around and finish this final lap to be victorious. Wayne Arnold cuts down to the inside. He wishes that was a pass for victory, but instead that will get him on the lead lap. There it is, the end of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Wayne Arnold wishes that had been a pass for victory at the end of a 3-hour endurance race, but instead it only served to unlap him. And Rance Harmon pulls off the track. I think Rance Harmon thinks he lost. Wayne Arnold thinks he won.
Rance Harmon is your winner.
Rance Harmon is the winner of this race. Rance Harmon won the race. Wayne Arnold finishes second, 1 lap down. And Rance Harmon in car number 16 will win the $10,000 first prize at the Indianapolis Speedrome for victory in this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. I'm not sure if Rance Harmon thought that he had lost the race or if simply he decided to go back into the pit area and pick up his crew. I'm sure the crew is going to inform Rance that he is the winner of tonight's 3-hour figure 8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome.
Yes, please select all the cars.
Scorers, we need you to pass all of your cards back to the main scorers here in the tower. We need all of the cards from the scorers up here to the tower. We need all of the cards up to the scorers here in the tower. We also need Rance Harmon here at the start-finish line. Rance, you're going to bring your crew with you. Rance, you're going to come out to collect the accolades of victory. Rance Harmon, the first outsider to win a 3-hour figure 8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. For so many years, it has been the guys that have come from the Indianapolis Speedrome that have won this event. And after finishing third in 1982, after finishing second in 1985, Rance Harmon has won. And there he is, Al Stilley. He's got the entire crew on that car. He is coming down to the start-finish line and victory. Harmon is going to go off on the victory lap here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. At least he'd like to, but instead, they'll just give him the checkered flag and give him the chance to celebrate. Those guys are overjoyed. Working now. I think it bears repeating the exact situation that happened there at the end of the event. Well, I think we should go over once again to explain to everybody the situation that put Wayne Arnold a lap down after his last pit stop. Rance Harmon stayed on the racetrack during a yellow. Wayne Arnold went in and made a pit stop. For Wayne to stay on the lead lap, he needed to come out of the pit area from that on-track pit gate there in the northwest corner, come down the main stretch and come across the start-finish line. That would have completed the lap. Then go around the marker tires, the standard pattern through turns number 1 and 2, and join the rest of the field.